Just a couple of acknowledgements. As some of you know, Evelyn Thorne has been in Arizona. She's flying back tonight, so she will not be present. Mike Rigney is probably sitting on Route 3. He will be here as soon as he's able to get here. Before we begin the public session, I'd like to make a couple of comments about the superintendent selection policy. This isn't in tremendous detail, but I think it might be helpful to you. Before beginning our public input session, I'd like to briefly summarize our superintendent search. Because of the time of the year, we had decided to seek an interim superintendent for 1 year and to use the Massachusetts Association of School Committees Superintendent Search Service to find a permanent superintendent. That doesn't mean forever. That means, instead of interim. We had heard from and received an information packet on this process from Mike Gilbert of the association. Some of you may have been present when we got this. For those of you who aren't familiar with this process, it's a year-long process. Starts out with community input and researches. The association provides the name of people to look at. It's very in-depth and so forth. So that's what's traditionally done, and we heard from Mike Gilbert about that. We learned that we could choose the interim in any way that we wanted to. This is another piece of information that some people aren't familiar with. In other words, if we found someone that we wanted, we just announce it. There is no process for that. The reason being, I think, is that in an emergency situation, particularly in a small district, they couldn't wait to have a year-long search to have a new superintendent. They'd need to move quickly. So at any rate, we were provided with the names of some 50 to 60 possible candidates and started informal talks with several people. When Lowell chose their new superintendent, Jay Lang, a very highly regarded candidate with 20 years of experience in virtually every area of educational administration, became a possible candidate. We spoke to him to see if he'd be interested. He was, and we were so excited about the possibility of hiring a top candidate, saving the cost of the search, and avoiding the hiring of an interim principal for 1 year. That's a statement. We were excited, and we are excited. In order to make this happen, we have moved quickly. And I know that's a point of concern, but I would just add off the top of my head that when an opportunity like this happens, sometimes it's necessary to do what's best for the district. And if it's quicker to do what's best for the district, that's what we need to do. That's my personal opinion. At the start of tonight's meeting, we're asking for public input on the talents and experiences that you'd like to see in our new superintendent. Your input will be valuable in interviewing Mr. Lang later tonight and as we move forward after tonight. Just so it's acknowledged from the beginning of the meeting, we will not be taking a vote tonight. It's on the agenda for next Tuesday's regular meeting. Okay, in terms of public input, the school committee welcomes at all times public input, but this is not a time for debate or personal attacks. I'd just like to digress for a second and add to that. Our focus in the committee is moving forward. It has been since, since we all got together at the start of this next year. And Chelmsford has always had an outstanding educational system, and we're committed to that, so our motivation is always to do what's best for the district, to build it and move ahead. So we do not want to spend time tonight. I will not allow spending time tonight to hash over what's happened in the past. We want your ideas about what the person should have that's going to lead us into the future. So that type of behavior will not be tolerated. Is there anyone who would like to address the committee at this time? This lady, if we could just let her go first because she has a prior commitment. When you come up to speak, would you please just give us your name and address for the record, and then we're all set.
My name is Pina Maggio. I live at 5 Toll Cross Road in Chelmsford. I just would like to give a little background before I say what I want to say, is that I am a teacher in Lowell. I've been a teacher in Lowell for almost 20 years now. Loving every minute of it, I might add. And I was fortunate enough to be asked to be on the selection committee for the superintendent of schools in Lowell. Those were executive sessions, so of course anything that was said at that time is confidential, but I want to be upfront in that I was on that committee, and that the committee did indeed bring Jay's name forward as a viable candidate for the position of superintendent. Having said that, as someone who has lived in Lowell for almost 30 years and has a vested interest, grandchildren, children in the Chelmsford public school system, when I heard that Jay was interested in, or we interested in him as a candidate for the superintendent, I was absolutely elated. Jay does not know me personally, nor do I know him personally. I know of him. I know him to be a man of very high integrity. I know him to be an extremely hard worker, and I want to share with you just 2 moments that I'm sure Jay is not even aware of. One is 4 or 5 years ago, I had reason to send an email, and Saturday night at 9:30, because I'm a workaholic, I'm sending it out, and at 9:35 I receive a confirmation from Jay, and I'm thinking, whoa, I'm not the only one that's working here on Saturday night. And the second situation was where there's a building in Lowell, and there were problems in the maintenance. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, Jay Lang was in the building checking the building out. So those may seem like minor points, but I think they speak volumes about the type of administrator that he is. Having said that, if I was sitting in your position right now, I would say 100% I would vote for him. So I'm here with mixed emotions, because there's another side to this, and that is that there is a flaw here. It's not in this gentleman, it's in the process. And the process needs to be transparent, it needs to engage, as Evelyn Thorin had said in the newspaper tonight, it needs to have the stakeholders' voice. And the stakeholders are the parents of the students in the system, whether it be special education, mainstream, ELL, gifted and talented, the teachers in the system, the administrators, the principals, UMass Lowell, Middlesex Community College, the business community. We need their voices. I don't hear them. They need to be part of the process. It's really important. This is not about the past, and I agree with you. We shouldn't be talking about what is, what has been, what will be. We are charting a new course. This is a ship in a different direction. We want to embrace all the stakeholders. That cannot happen without their voice. Without their voice, it's a disservice to them, more importantly to the children. This is all about our children, my grandchildren, your grandchildren. It's really not about us. It's a disservice to them. It's a disservice to the stakeholders. And I actually believe it's a disservice to Jay. We want this to be an open forum. We want this to be an event that incorporates and embraces all the stakeholders. That can't happen if this committee, and you have that legal right to make a choice, and I would be making it with you, by the way. So this is a difficult statement for me to make, but I don't think it, morally and ethically, I don't think it should be made. We need to have confidence in you as individuals who are making the right decisions for our children, and we need to feel that we're part of it. I need to be part of it as a parent, as a grandparent of a child in the school system. So I plead with you to please open it up. You don't have to have 4 weeks. You don't have to spend $20,000 to get some company, to get a guy from Timbuktu to say, I want to work in Chelmsford. It doesn't have to be that elaborate. But please, please let the voices be heard. And I'm sure we'll wind up with this wonderful gentleman as superintendent, and I'm hoping that's what will happen. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, you might want to limit the amount of time, because a lot of people.
Yeah, okay. Try to be brief, and also avoid repetition, please. I neglected to mention, this is Jay Lang. I introduced him to many. Oh, what happened? I introduced him to all the early individuals, and so he met a lot of the people, and then and we started. So I apologize for the rest of you that came in, I apologize for not introducing him. In terms of the comments, I'm not going to respond to everything, but I do want to make a couple of quick comments. Tomorrow, we plan to be touring this district with Jay in an attempt to get as many people to meet him as we can. One thing that is a problem for us is time, because there are limitations in terms of the amount of time that I've noticed that this gentleman and other people have to give to districts, and we want to have the person on hand for the start of school, and we have to negotiate a contract. So we're trying to be as transparent as we can. I'm getting all kinds of grief because I've been in the newspaper so much, but I've been trying to cooperate with both the Independent and the Sun in terms of releasing information as I can. So we're not trying to hide anything, but we are under certain constraints, and I won't bring this up again, but I felt it was necessary to respond to that. Next speaker, please. Okay.
I didn't realize I had to wait in line.
That's right.
I didn't know either.
Is there a line?
Is there a line? Okay, folks, I guess
And I just cut him? So,
let's be nice to one another. Okay, I'm sorry, go right ahead.
My name is Donna
Yeah.
Newcomb. My name is Donna Newcomb, and I live at 16 Janet Road. I'm sorry, Mr. Thomas, but I think you are going to hear a repetition tonight, and I
That's
think
okay.
it's
Okay.
only fair.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Because I think that one person doesn't necessarily represent the views of everyone here.
No.
Okay. That being said, I have also worked in Lowell. I have had the opportunity to meet Mr. Lang. I actually work under his sister, and I've worked with his wife, and I can tell you right now that you're not going to find more dedicated and hardworking individuals. Every Lang I've worked with, I can say that about. Okay.
Are they all related?
Yeah, they are, by one form or another. That being said, okay, and I believe that you would be an asset, okay, to this school system. But I think we do need to look in the past just a little bit, because one of the things that in the past that you told us that you would do as a school committee through this whole mess is that you would do things differently. That there would be more transparency. That you would work to restore your credibility and people's faith in this. And I don't think that going through this process this way does that. I think that we've been through a lot as a town. I think we deserve the opportunity to have this be a well thought out, not as transparent as we can, but thoroughly transparent process. I think you went to the town meeting and you asked for almost $800,000 in the fall. Okay, you get 52%, if I'm not mistaken, of the town's budget. Okay, that's a lot of money for a small amount of people that have kids in the school system. This involves everybody, every taxpayer, okay? They need to know that the next person that we bring in, and I have no doubt that you would be a great one, will do the right thing, that we're not going to go back and have the problems that we had before, okay? My question for you, Mr. Lang, is, I don't know if you can answer this or not, is would you be willing to enter into the search process, with any other candidate, going forward? I mean, I do feel that this is rushed, but would you be willing to allow it to be an open search process and participate in that and be considered as a candidate for superintendent?
I don't know that I should respond.
No, this is an opportunity for you to express.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I see. I heard.
It may
I
come up,
apologize,
later
and I
on.
apologize because I heard two different things about what tonight was.
Yeah.
I heard it was a public forum, and I heard it was a public interview. So if it's an interview, I assume that meant we could ask the candidate questions.
It's our interview after the public session.
Okay, I wasn't sure about that,
that's
so I
okay.
apologize.
Oh, no problem.
So,
No problem.
again, I think you would be an asset to the school system, but I do hope that, as the former speaker said, that you will open up the process and do the right thing.
Thank you.
Rob Russo, 99 Cricket Spring Road. I won't be as repetitive, I don't think. I am a lifelong resident of Chelmsford. My kids, my baby's graduating in a couple of weeks, and I've spent my entire professional career trying to better Chelmsford public schools for kids. And I've always put in my head that I want to treat everyone's kids like they were my own. And when I first started as a coach back in '85, I didn't have kids. But I still had that philosophy with me, and I still carry it today, even though my kids will be leaving and I'll still be working here. I had the good fortune of meeting Mr. Lang, Dr. Lang, actually, over 20 years ago. And I will confide in you that I am friends with him. We don't go out. I see him maybe once or twice a year, but every time I see him, we get to exchange pleasantries. But I did get a chance to work in Lowell Central Office as an interim transportation director. And I think Jay Lang is exactly what this town needs. I wasn't interviewing for a job. I wanted to give you some of my credentials because I am vested in this town, and I feel I've been around through thick and thin for many years, and it's time to move forward. And if you look at the powerful unions in Lowell, you look at the diversity of Lowell, you look at the new buildings that Lowell Public Schools has put in. I've spent year after year at Lowell through athletics. I see what goes on there, and it's my observation that Dr. Lang is someone that can bring people together. He can meet with these diverse boards. Hell, he even went through Bernie Lynch okay. Glad we have Paul Cohen. And that's what we need. And I would be a champion after what I've observed over the last year or two of a process, which is what the word is being used today. But there's a shortage of superintendents. He's interviewed for 12 or 15 years as Lowell's assistant superintendent. I believe that's how long it's been. We've observed that. We can go back through history and observe that. He was vetted by the association that you would have hired anyways. And I can speak from my wife who works now at Groton Dunstable. She got hired 3 or 4 years ago with an interim superintendent, and it took 2 goes to get the one they have now because there aren't a lot of high-quality candidates. And so we can have a candidate. Not that my word means much, but in my observations, I have seen him do some wonderful things. His demeanor, his quiet, calm confidence is exactly what the school district needs. That's my 2 cents, and as Forrest Gump would say, that's all I have to say about that. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much.
Hi, good evening. My name's Ben Cole, 82 Brick Hill Road. I'm also the Chelmsford Federation of Teachers President, Local 3569. I think I'll take less than 2 minutes, 3 comments, 1 question. I'd like to reiterate the comments that Mr. Russo just made regarding the importance of procedures and the ones before him. However, everything's a situation. And for the past year, we've been in a pretty deep one. So I commend the school committee on your choice to proceed as follows. I know it's not an easy one, and I know not everyone's happy about it. But again, as president of local, I commend you on this bold move. Dr. Lang, it's perusing your resume. It's really nice to see that you have a lot of depth and experience in business and administration. I believe we need it. Speaking for the teachers and for the children, we're top notch. We are. We're a wonderful group of people, and we know how to teach. But can you explain how your experiences in Lowell, not now, later?
We can, if you want to stay, or we can watch the reruns on cable, but we're going to be questioning Mr. Lang as the interview, and I'm sure that'll come up. So
I just want the questions, again, we're wonderful. I know he's had experience in facilities and management. If you, not now, but later on in the evening, explain to the committee and to the town how you will address our buildings, where you have some children studying in 58-degree weather in the winter and right next door to some with 84 degrees. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
We'll make every effort to
opening.
address your concern.
Yep.
Mr. Hanson, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Lang, members of the committee. My name is Matt Hansen, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen here in Chelmsford, also a lifelong Chelmsford resident. And again, I don't want to repeat any comments. I just want to say that I actually 100% support the process that you're going through here this evening. I understand the comments from some people who wish we could go through a more lengthy public process, but I do think we have a unique opportunity here, a very unique opportunity. And quite frankly, I think stability has been an issue probably for the last 6 months, almost going on a year now. I think stability's been a real major issue, and I'm not a fan of the lengthy 6 to 12 month process, depending on how things unfolded, where we would get an interim superintendent in here. I understand up until very recently that was the plan, but my own personal preference, rather than transitioning a new person, introducing a new person to the principals, the students, the teachers, other people in the department, in the community, and just when everyone starts to feel comfortable with that person, transitioning them out and bringing another new person in. I have faith in all of you. We have business leaders, parents, PTO people, a former principal. I trust your judgment. It's clear to everyone that Dr. Lang is a qualified candidate. I trust you in the process that if you interview him and you feel that he is the best candidate for Chelmsford, I have faith in your decision. And I have faith that you'll continue to follow through the process of introducing him to the community and allowing him to get to know all the players involved and to really bring our school department forward. But I think we have a very unique opportunity here to create some stability in the school department. I really applaud your decisions for your recent school business manager and the high school principal. You've made some fantastic choices, and I think if we have a superintendent in place quickly, he can then be a part of that process of picking some of the new teachers and other people who are going to need, like the CHIPS individual and new employees. People have already questioned, what are we going to do and who's going to be making these decisions? Is it the outgoing superintendent or is it going to be the interim superintendent? Say maybe it doesn't need to be either of those. I think some stability for the department would be great for our school system. It would be great for our town if you feel comfortable with the candidate. And I trust you. I trust the decision that you're going to make, and I have faith and confidence that you'll do the right thing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Hey there. First, thank you, guys. My name's Donna Omabono. I live at 7 Crabapple Lane in Harrington Elementary School. First, thank you for all of your service and dedication to this town. My colleagues and I know and appreciate all you do for this district. I might be a little bit redundant only because I had mine typed up. As a parent, taxpayer, and teacher in this district, I would ask that this school committee use due diligence in assessing what is right for the children, teachers, administrators, parents, and ultimately all of the taxpayers of this town. It is the school committee's responsibility to appoint the best qualified person to lead our school district in the right direction. The school committee needs to use transparency when appointing this position. I realize time is of the essence, but it is imperative that we find a candidate that can meet all of the needs of this district. Although Dr. Lang could be a highly qualified candidate, and I've been searching around because I'm an effective teacher that wants to work with great people, I don't think you should be the only candidate. As Dr. Lang stated in one interview while vying for the superintendent's position in Lowell, when he was asked about hiring principals, he said, we need to recruit the very best and brightest people. He also stated, we can't afford to post positions and hope people come to us. And you truly may be the best person for this job. I just would love to see a process for the people. It should be a process involving many parties, including the school committee, administrators, everyone else has said tonight. In light of everything that has happened, this committee needs to listen to all stakeholders so that we acquire the best for the children of the district. I urge you to seek a qualified interim and then begin the process of looking for a superintendent this district and the children of Chelmsford deserve and need. And if you guys go forth, because you know what, you work hard, I know that. I would say that the teachers want to see you guys. We do have issues going on right now, and we honestly feel like our voices have not been heard. So, if it is you, we would love to see you out and about. Likewise, we would love to see you guys too. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Paulton?
Good evening. I'm Sam Polton, 16 Berkeley Drive. Since 1984, I've either been a member of the Chelmsford School Committee or the Neshoba Tech School Committee. Proudly served on both. And during the first month after being elected to the Chelmsford School Committee, we had to hire a new superintendent. So hit the ground running with that process. The last vote that I participated in was bringing on a new superintendent in 1991. One of the first votes I had to take at Neshoba Tech was replacing Bernie Nystrom with a new superintendent. I then voted for another superintendent, and I had the good fortune to vote for Judith Klemkowitz more than 15 years ago. So with that said, I want to applaud our school committee for the timely and bold action they've taken to begin the process of looking at Mr. Lang, because that's what I see tonight. I don't, there's not going to be a vote tonight, so I think Mr. Lang is here to be seen. In my own mind, as a Chelmsford resident, and unlike Matt Hansen, I'm not a lifelong resident. I didn't move into Chelmsford till 1979, so I'm a blow-in. But we've been here for a while. I don't know Mr. Lang personally, but I feel as if I do, because in the 90s, my daughter had him as a teacher. And it was during the period of time when it was a different daughter than we had recognized. And she got through Mr. Lang's association well. So I know that he was a good teacher. I had the good fortune to see his interview in Lowell. And I have to tell people that if they want to see a great interview, and there happened to have been 2 fabulous interviews in Lowell, look at them and you'll see what a superintendent should be. As a Chelmsford resident, but as a business owner in Lowell, I own one business and I run another business. I was very disappointed that Dr. Lang was not appointed. I thought he was exactly what the city of Lowell needed because of his unique blend of a depth of knowledge of financing with a working knowledge of curriculum, personnel, all those things. It's unique to find somebody who is like that. And I remember saying, wow, he hit a home run in his interview. This is going to be great. I was disappointed. But I thought the same thing when I was disappointed that a manager candidate was not chosen in Lowell. I said, wow, I hope that somebody reaches out. We could use a guy like this. So I say that. And just to say, there was a checklist in my mind. What should we have as a new superintendent of schools in Chelmsford? We need someone who not only has strengths in curriculum, personnel, and finance. We need someone who knows our town. We're at a unique period in time. Very, very unique. I want somebody who knows that we have a great school system, that the system doesn't need to be totally overhauled and fixed. We don't need a new direction. We don't need new enthusiasm. We have all of that. We need to get in and fix what wasn't great. And as the chair said, go forward. We have a unique opportunity to get a man who has been serving where everyone can watch him. He's a known quality as an assistant superintendent. Many of us have seen him in action, and anyone can hear about him in action. So is he vetted? Absolutely. 2 ways. Vetted through his job in the public eye, vetted by making the list of finalists, and vetted by the very association that we would turn to find candidates. So we have one. Second, does he know Chelmsford? Not only did he teach here briefly, but for a couple of years, he knows the community. He socializes in the community, had socialized. Does he know our school system? Yes. Does he agree with us that we've got a good one, that we have great staff, great students, great facilities? Yes, he does. There you go, second on my checklist. Third, does he have financial experience, because that's the one area that obviously we weren't getting an A+ on, to say the least. Yes, financing is his strength, but not above the other strengths that you need as a superintendent. And lastly, to speak to the concerns, what could be more transparent than this? We're bringing a man in, he's sitting here for all of us to see, you're going to question him in public, the vote is not going to take place till next week. If there's tremendous opposition, you surely are going to hear about that. You're our elected officials. So in closing, I would say, we elected you as our school committee. I'm very proud that you're willing to take the heat in order to take advantage of an opportunity that doesn't always come. If ever there were a situation where you don't want to look the proverbial gift horse in the mouth, this is it. It's not just a flash in the pan. There is a man who put himself out. Imagine jumping into the lion's den, pardon the pun, when I'm sure that he could become a superintendent pretty quickly now that he hasn't been picked up in Lowell. And that is my major concern. Obviously, I think this is the man that can lead us. And Mr. Thomas said it's not a permanent appointment. So obviously, if it doesn't work out, we're not going to have Mr. Lang as a judge that's appointed for life. Here's what I'm worried about, and please, please consider this. A man of this caliber in May, June, is not going to last. We may say we need to go through the process, we need to interview. Here's a man that obviously wants to be a superintendent of schools. And I can tell you without equivocation, if you were qualified to be a vocational school superintendent and Judith were leaving on July 1st, come on down. I feel that strongly. So please, don't allow another school system to scoop this man up. And also, don't go through the long process which will prevent us from having a man in place prior to the first day of school. He could be in place a month before the first day of school, depending on what the negotiation and the vetting process. What a blessing to have a man of this caliber on the job in August, please God, ready for the first day of school, where he got the lay of the land and everybody knows and trusts him. Why would we vote for a school committee if we didn't trust their judgment? So I'm sitting here saying, not only do I trust that Jay Lang will do a great job, I trust that if this is the right man, you'll hire him, and if he's the wrong man, you'll say, it looked like a good idea, but after interviewing you and listening to the community for the past week, not so much. So I trust you, and I couldn't recommend Dr. Lang more strongly. So again, you made a tough decision, and I'm with you, and I'm with Dr. Lang. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Kathy Duffett, formerly a member of the Chelmsford School Committee, currently on the Chelmsford Finance Committee. And I would like to speak to the idea of a superintendent search. When we've been through this process, lengthy process, the time we selected Dr. Yeoman, which we took the year, we had a committee, we filled out the brochure, we followed the exact same process to the T that was done when Dr. Mosier was selected. We, followed the bylines. And we also followed the advice of the MSAC and an outside consulting firm. And what I would like to say, and I think this has been mentioned numerous times before, is about the limited candidate pool. And that is a highly competitive market. And what happened in the past is, and I think what happens is, the same X number of people apply to various districts. And so every district who's on the same timeline as getting the candidates at the exact same time. And what happens is the best and the brightest are taken very quickly, and then you re-look through who you've got. So it's a process, and your timing is you're in a difficult spot, because really you would have to be, for searching for a full-time superintendent, you really would have to be making your choices by November of this year to get the best of the qualified candidates. So that's the process, and it is a real issue about getting the quality candidates. I'd like to speak to the point of an interim. If you chose an interim, I think that it would be better if you chose someone who could continue in that position, because what I really want people to focus on is the staff. The staff at all levels, central administration, the teachers, the principals, they've been through a tough year, and I feel that they merit and deserve consistency and a feeling of moving on. And if you have an interim and then you go to yet another candidate, it's going to be another year of ebb and flows and transitions. And I feel that the staff deserves consistency, long-term consistency. And I think that's important. I think they deserve it. I don't know Mr. Lang. I met him this evening when I arrived. He seemingly is an excellent candidate. You're going to have an opportunity to interview him and ask the questions, and ask what you want. Determine if he is the candidate that you want. These are some things that I see and feel very strongly that Chelmsford needs in a candidate. I feel they need someone that does have a strong financial background, long-term central administration experience, and someone that can communicate well with the town management. We can't go on as a community not having good communication and understanding between the various organizations, because we are one town. It's one tax dollar being shared amongst us all. So I believe we should have strong central administration experience for your candidate. I believe strong financial background. And I really want a dedication to academic excellence. That is the premier thing that we need in Chelmsford. We have a fantastic program. Most of it isn't actually recognized in the community about how good our teachers are, our staff, our principal, our school committee. But I want a dedication to academic excellence and moving us further and deeper and exploring opportunities with UMass Lowell, Middlesex Community College, so that our students can get college credits, and not just the top students that may be languishing, give them other opportunities. So I would really want someone who is vested in academic excellence, and I'm very interested in the staff feeling good about the selection. I do feel having an interim and then a second person, regardless of who these people are, that they might fulfill those roles, is not the best advantage. Choose a person based on their qualifications, move forward, and let the staff and the community heal and work together and go forward. And I also, finally, as a money matter, I feel like the $20,000 or $25,000 that you'd have to spend to do your search could likely be better served. But that is the going rate, and if you choose to do that, I applaud you for that effort as well. But academic excellence.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Fran McDougall. I am a retired teacher from the McAuliffe School, which Jay knows very well, up on the hill in Lowell, and I spent many years in the Lowell school system, which is a superb school system. And I spent this afternoon, that's why I have copious notes, watching a handsome young man with a pink tie on in his interview. I'm also Paul George's mother. You didn't know that, did you? You can tell Paul I said that. So I was, when I was in Lowell, I was the political chair of the union. So I was very active on the teacher side. And so what I'm concerned, as always, since we have no teachers on the committee, I'm speaking for the educators in this town when I want to put forward that, and I'm sure you'll be able to do this, to choose your superintendent, our superintendent, by their ability to not only manage, which Jay has done for several years now, and at the central office, done well with the financial side. Plus, since I've been gone, and I have to admit that, Jay, I've been gone since 2004, so I'm old, I'm very old. And so I have not seen him bloom in the last 12 years to continue in his career for the city of Lowell. But I did spend this afternoon listening to the interview, and there were several things that came up that I don't think everyone is aware of. When you are in this little town of Chelmsford, you're not aware we're going through funding problems. The city of Lowell, when I went to work there, schools were blooming all over the place. We had funding that was absolutely marvelous and still is. There are over 70% of non-English speaking families in the city of Lowell. So it's completely different as far as the funding goes between the city of Lowell and the town of Chelmsford. So there is a gap in funding. The staffing in the city of Lowell, that includes custodial, lunchroom people, buses, everything is funded in a different way. Am I right, Jay, than this in the towns? But
We'll try to get at that for you.
so there is a gap here between the funding that goes into the city of Lowell, which has plenty of money, as opposed to we're dying here, we're being strangled by not having enough money. And the other thing that in the interview that I heard Jay talk about, that Lowell is so fortunate in having a cooperation between the university, the Lowell plan. There are people just handing money, I'm probably overstating that, giving money to the schools in Lowell. Lowell has it all, and it has the greatest teachers around also, I must say that. And so there'll be a difference in the funding, all the computers they want. They have, it's a wonderful, wonderful system. So I would ask that when you are thinking of bringing someone in, I would like to not only have the financial part of the picture, but I also would like to have the curriculum. Someone said they want the finest schools. We want to be the best schools. I'm interested in curriculum. And in the city of Lowell, there's a larger staff there to take care, it's a bigger system, to take care of the curriculum problems. There would have to be some working out of how Jay would work to get that part of the picture worked in. He knows the schools in Lowell, he knows the players, the district, so he really knows the city of Lowell. When he's buying his meat in the market, parents come up and speak to him. Yes, they do. And so Lowell is a wonderful community, but it's going to be different in the town of Chelmsford, especially in the funding part of it. We just are the orphans of the funding system. We don't have the numbers to bring those things up. And he's been a loyal, good member of the Lowell school system. I'm sure that he, along with anyone else you may want to bring in and interview, would do a good job here. And I was also on Mr. Mosier's, the committee on selecting Dr. Mosier. So I've had a little background. And now I'll leave you.
Thank you very much.
Fran, I just want to point out that Alan Thomas and Evelyn Thorne were both teachers. So we don't have.
Oh, I'm looking straight at him and saying that. I mean, I've known Al since.
I keep reading
Linda,
that.
could you stand up for just a minute? I'd like to have you meet Linda Hirsch, who's the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum. Okay, so we have some people in curriculum.
Oh, I didn't say you didn't have people.
Well, I don't want her to feel
there
bad,
are a lot of
that's
people
all.
in Lowell working on that.
Thank you very much.
Teacher training and so forth is
Yeah?
wonderful.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon or good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Angie Toronto, 8 Chalmsford Court. Prior a teacher, administrator, school committee member in the town of Chelmsford. What I'd like to say is that during my tenure here in Chelmsford, whether a teacher, administrator, or on the school committee, I have had the opportunity to work with and work under 6 superintendents. And each one of them had their strengths. And when we would look what their strengths were, we worked with them to develop their strengths. I'm not going to go over the strengths of those past superintendents, but what I did was I put those, kept thinking of those strengths, and now when I see what Dr. Lang has to offer, I see many of those strengths in all of those 6 superintendents and in the package that Dr. Lang has to offer Chelmsford, and I'm pleased about that. Financial, okay, he's dealt with that. Grants, where to get the money. Maybe we won't get the grants, but at least he has the exposure of where to go, who to look for to get these grants that we would need and maybe that we would qualify. Negotiations are number one big thing. When I first got on the school committee, negotiations were new to me because most of the time I sat on the other side of the table. So therefore, it's something with that background, dealing with personnel, unbelievable. Okay, the number of people that he has been exposed to, the number of people that he recommended and hired. Building the schools, another big. We did have a superintendent, the last one, before Dr. Tiano. He built schools out there in Chicago area. He had that experience. What I like about the qualities that Jay has to offer is I feel he's a people person. That's something we need. I heard several people talk about somebody being in the schools, and they're right. The superintendent does belong in the schools. You find the time to get into the schools and see what our teachers are doing. I want to go back. Last week we had Dr. Malone, the previous what was he?
Secretary of Ed.
Secretary of Education, come and speak to us. So we're listening to him, and I'm in awe. He came and spent one day here, and he listed the qualities that he saw in the Chelmsford schools, the teachers, the administrators, and the one thing that he brought out that he admired was that when he spoke to the students, they spoke to him eye to eye. He was amazed by that. And I'm saying in one day, he noticed all of these qualities that Chelmsford has to offer our students. So it is important to get out there and see what is going on. And I made a statement to several of the school committee members. He saw in one day and praised the qualities that he saw in one day. And I'm sorry to say that there are many parents out there that didn't even know that exists in our school system. And that's what we need. We need somebody with PR. We have to know what is going on. I like what his background. I feel that I'm confident that when you make your decision, and if Dr. Lang is the person that we are going to have as our superintendent, I will be pleased with that, with my experience here in the town of Chelmsford. What I would like to say is the sooner the better. I want to put our staff I feel our staff deserves to be put at ease. They can leave here, have a beautiful summer, and come back full of vim and vigor and start fresh in September. And I think they're looking for that. And I know they are, and I know the students are too. So I don't feel that we should delay this decision to select our superintendent. The sooner we can get started, the better. And I think we're off to a good start. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Karen DiDonato for Archibald. Welcome to Chelmsford, Dr. Lang. Just to give you a little background to who I am, I've lived in Chelmsford for probably about 28 years. 4 of my children have graduated from the Chelmsford school system, and I've been a town meeting rep. First off, I just wanted to commend the school committee for jumping on this opportunity. One thing that I do want to speak to is the process. As much as I think a process, we would all love to go through the process, I have personally sat on 3 committees, 1 for superintendent and 2 for principals. So I have personal experience of the process, how long it's taken. And unfortunately, I have to say, not one of those administrators are still here. So the process isn't always the way to go. I think what you need to do is you need to go with your gut. Sometimes I think life would be a lot better if we just used common sense. If I haven't heard one person come up here today and say that he is not going to meet, that he does not meet the criteria, it sounds like you've got a fantastic candidate here. It sounds like I agree that people do want transparency. You're not going to get any more transparent than this. We're all on TV. It was on the front page of the Lowell Sun today. Given the time constraints, I don't think you should lose this candidate. If everyone does agree after interviewing him tonight that he is a phenomenal candidate, and I have not heard anything but, especially with his interviews in Lowell and how far he was in that process, and the fact that he's lived next door and worked next door to Chelmsford for all these years, I think he'd have a good pulse on what Chelmsford is all about. We need to invest in our kids. We need to invest in our administration. We need to invest in our teachers. The only thing that I would ask is, once you've interviewed him, is I would also ask that the other stakeholders, the immediate stakeholders in this, also have a chance to meet with Dr. Lang. Paul Cohen, they're going to work hand in hand, superintendent with our town manager, Linda Hirsch, and the administration staff. I think it's extremely important to get their input on who their next supervisor, manager, superintendent, whatever, have their input and have an opportunity for them to meet and actually talk with him. So I commend you. I say run for it. Don't let this opportunity bypass us. As much as we would love the process, it doesn't always work. I want commitment, and I want someone who's going to invest in the town and stay for a long time, because as many people have said, we need stability. And everything Matt Hansen said, I agree with just about everything everyone has said, except for the fact, do it now and get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we will talk to you in the meat departments too.
Thank you.
Mike Qualick, 9 Whipple Tree Road. Through you to him, what was the 4th thing?
What?
What was the 4th thing on your video? In your interview?
The what?
You were joking, you said there were 3, you wanted to talk about 4 things, they only let you talk about 3.
Oh, I got to it at the end. I got to it at the end.
So that's on the lighter side. My question is not about transparency. This is asking questions of what are you looking for in the next superintendent. So if there's any superintendent candidates listening, this is what I would have to say. Okay, it's not about transparency, it's about inclusion. Even tonight we heard about unique, expedite, urgent, privileged. Okay, well, I've kind of been hearing that for months now. And at some point in time, we have to stop having unique situations. We need to stop expediting. We need to stop feeling privileged. And the next superintendent has to bring some normalcy, some good old-fashioned, let's communicate on a regular basis, not because we have a crisis coming up. The crises are really a lack of communication, because things happen all the time that go wrong. It's if we knew all along that things were going wrong, then we just have a dilemma. We don't have a crisis. One of the things that a superintendent candidate had said about surveys, even if you had a low outcome on a survey, but that input was important, well, we stopped having school principal parent evenings or mornings. They were attended by 10 to 12 people, but you got great input. We had 0 this year. So the communications on that level, not from the school committee, but if you talk about like Parker Middle School at that level, those didn't happen this year. And they were happening to the tune of 3 to 4 a year, right? And that was a great chance for the administration to get input. We need to go back to that kind of communications. I also heard about communications. Gee, we got one letter out to the parents. We communicated. Well, come on, any PR firm knows that one letter, it takes, 19 to 20 hits to make a penetration when it comes to getting impact on people. The communications really needs to improve. And I heard that you talked about that during your interview. That is a must for the next superintendent. We also had a detailed budget, one that was detailed like nobody's business. I now know how many toilet rolls are used in stall number 3 at Parker. Okay? But that was great content. There was no context put against it. It was a level services budget, but we had a 5-year strategic plan, and not once, and maybe I missed the one time it happened, is no one referred to where we were in the 5-year strategic plan and how that budget met the strategic plan. The next superintendent, one, needs to revisit the 5-year strategic plan, see if it fits. It's not a question of the mission. Chelmsford School District has a great mission, but a strategic plan is resource limited, and I didn't see how that budget addressed a viable strategic plan. That's what we need in the next superintendent, in my opinion. Okay? So we've talked about bringing it back to normalcy and communicating from the front, not so we face dilemmas, not crises. Communicating on a regular basis, whether it's in small groups or in large groups, well, that's a chance to diffuse issues before they become large. That didn't happen in the last year or so. We need to have it happen. Then my pet peeve, we took great pride that our activity fees didn't go up this year. Well, that's not an accomplishment. Why do we even have activity fees? We are limiting people from participating. You know, Sal, you talked about it in your campaign. Anita talked about it in her campaign. The ability to participate in after-school activities is what made them. It was like taking another required course. When we have high activity fees that sometimes amount to 3 days take-home pay for a family of 4, there's something wrong with that. We limit. And I've talked to like Jeff Hardy and other people. We have fewer 3-letter varsity athletes nowadays than we had 10 years ago. The school work hasn't gotten any harder because term 1 is the same as term 4. Why aren't they playing sports in both? Well, it might have something to do with activity fees, right? I stunk at sports, but I got to play 3 of them. If my dad had to pay activity fees, I would have played in none. So the next superintendent needs to actively look at how we can limit and reduce those activity fees. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Tom Souza, 256 Riverneck Road. I'm a parent in the district, and I'm also a teacher. And a couple of things that I think are real important. When you guys are talking with Dr. Lang later on, I think certainly, and it goes to what Mr. McDougall was saying earlier, background in grants would be beneficial, and how can that help us going forward? I think that would be very helpful to understand. I think what's important and what I really wanted to say here, there are two different things. The first one is everybody's talked about transparency as being what you guys had promised, but you also promised efficiency. Okay, this I believe tonight is transparent. Okay, efficiency, we wait as long as no other district scoops him up. I guarantee you the organization's going to recommend him. Why wait? Okay, let's be efficient. Let's not waste the other money. Let's be efficient in that regard and move forward. And then finally, to me, the thing that really stood out, the first couple of people that came up and spoke tonight were teachers in Lowell. As I said, I'm a teacher. Okay, they didn't have anything bad to say about him. Okay, and I don't know what through the process that everybody's talking about, the process, I don't know what more we could find out. You can look at a resume and see skills, but you're going to find out when people come up to talk. And those people from Lowell tonight, they came up and they had nothing but good things to say about him. I'll throw in my wife's a teacher in Lowell, and she says nothing but good things about him as well. Pretty much all I have.
Thank you very much.
Glenn Diggs, 220 Wellman Avenue. First of all, I'm not related to any Langs. I don't know any Langs. I'm sure I'd like to know some Langs, but I don't at this point. I did watch the video of the interview in Lowell, and no one could argue with Dr. Lang being superlative in his presentation, and certainly never a loss for words. My main focus is on the topic of transparency. I think that's what the crux is. If you read Facebook on town and so forth, the arguments really resolve around that. No one is saying that Dr. Lang is not a highly qualified candidate. But this board has gone on record time and time and time again about transparency, about the ways of the past are over, and we are carrying on with the new. Now, I may be wrong, but I believe 80% of this board has never hired a superintendent. I don't know about you. I don't think you have been, Mike. Evelyn is probably the only one. So you're all treading on new turf, all right? So should you jump quickly, or should you do due diligence, all right? The word transparency was used by Dr. Lang in his presentation in Lowell. Addressing the qualities of a principal. His first topic, I believe, was transparency, that he believes fully in transparency. And some people have argued tonight that this is transparency. All right, there's about 25 people in the room who are not related to the school system. There are some people watching at home. This is not transparency. Transparency is a long, dedicated process with a finite end. It has a list of priorities. What are the priorities that you want from a superintendent? We've never seen the list of priorities. You know, Dr. Lang his strength seems to be in administration and finance. This town has just spent a long, arduous effort to hire a quality financial person for the school system. Is that one of the number one priorities that you want in a superintendent? You now have, theoretically, that role filled. And any leader of any company or a school system or a town or whatever never is an A in every category of endeavors that he needs to do. In some he's an A, in some he's a B. But if he's really a great candidate or a great manager, that B that he has a person working for him who is an A. And so everyone's saying that Dr. Lang is, without qualification, superlative. Well, who is he standing beside at this point? Absolutely no one. And therefore, he has to be a shining example. So yes, does it put the town kind of in limbo for a while in doing a long search? Yes. You know, Dr. Lang also talked in his discussion on principles. He used a word that I've never heard in this room in the last year, and that is he used the word vision, that he's looking down the road 25 years from now in terms of looking at what's needed. That would be one of the priorities that you should have in looking for a candidate. Who has the vision? Who has the vision to say that in 15 years, this town is going to need to build 3 schools? How are we going to get to that? All right? Again, what is the list of priorities? What is needed in the future? We're looking for the vision from this board to assess the candidate and what his vision is and so forth. You know, you're looking at a candidate who's coming from a school system, and these are DESE's statistics, and I believe I have them right. Chelmsford has 5,000 students approximately. Lowell has 14,000, roughly 3 to 1. In terms of Chapter 10 money, Chelmsford gets 10 million, Lowell gets 135 million. So they have 3 times the number of students, but 13.5 times the number of monies. The priorities and the needs of what it takes to run Chelmsford are different than what runs Lowell. That numerous times in this hall, people have brought forth statistics to compare one town versus another, what we're doing, what another's doing, what they're doing in terms of technology, what their terms in doing of SPED, so forth and so on. Never once has this town ever compared itself to Lowell. Usually it's Franklin, maybe sometimes Westford, although people don't like to use Westford, which is relatively the same size. But never is it compared to Lowell. That in Lowell, it's a much bigger system. There are more interlevels of managers to do things. In Chelmsford, the superintendent must wear more hats than its comparable part in Lowell. And at the same time, you know, it comes across very clear in the presentation that Dr. Lang did for the superintendent job in Lowell, that job was the job that he wanted. Everything that he has done to date speaks that he is a Lowell person, that he grew up there, he goes to the University of Lowell, he's taught there, or rather has been administrator there for a number of years. Everything is centered on Lowell. Does Chelmsford want someone who looks at the Chelmsford superintendent job as something that is the job that they want, or is it a job? If the position came open in Lowell 2 years from now, and they were looking for a superintendent, not only did Dr. Lang have all the experience in Lowell, he now has also the experience of being the man or the head of the school department in Chelmsford. Perhaps he might jump ship, as opposed to being, we need someone in town who has a commitment or sees this as a long-term position. And again, without a list of priorities to go by and a process to extend this out over a period of time, you don't know that. So again, no one is saying that Dr. Lang may be the ultimate #1 person for the job, but at this point, it's pure conjecture. And you can save time and energy by appointing it. In the past, maybe that hasn't worked out. We have done an exhaustive search and spent a lot of money. Maybe that didn't work out. But the bottom line is this. If you had 100 people and they went out to buy a house, how many people looked at one house and bought it versus looked at many houses and chose among those houses what they felt was the best for them? And that's what the bottom line is here. We have one candidate, outstanding, but how does he compare with what else might be out there? And again, if you want the best candidates, it's really wrong time of year to do that. And unfortunately, that may be just the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
You had no vision. You had no vision.
Welcome.
Hi. My name is Kathy Rossman. I live at 89 Park Road here in town. I mostly have questions. Hi. One of the things that kind of confused me is that I read the statement made by the school committee about when Dr. Tiano had mutually agreed that you guys weren't on the same page or had the same vision. And one of the things that I've heard that is that the school committee seems to be on the same page as Dr. Lang, which is great. But it's very vague to me. I don't know what that vision is. I don't really understand. That seemed to be very vague when all of a sudden Dr. Tiano and you guys weren't on the same page, and now you are, but I don't know what that is. And I think what would be very helpful for teachers and for parents is to understand what that is. So I would like that to be communicated by the school committee. The other thing that I think you can appreciate is that the staff have had a lot of demands put on them within these past few years between DDMs and SMART goals and evaluations and such. And one of the key components of that is to do a self-evaluation. Every teacher is asked to do that so that they can identify areas of strengths and weaknesses and be honest, yada, yada, yada. Since I've been around here, I've seen a lot of change in the administration department in terms of hiring. A lot of people have come and gone very quickly, and that, as a staff member, is and as a resident, is very concerning because it makes you wonder what is going on. And maybe that doesn't need to be disclosed to the public as dirty laundry, but I think the school committee owes it, since you're asking the teachers to do the self-evaluation for this, all that kind of stuff, is that there's also a self-evaluation that's done. I think being expedient and taking advantage of good situations is phenomenal, but I don't think that can be at the expense of having some sort of process where people sit back and look and see what is good, what are we not doing well in this process, because I don't think you're going to do any service to any candidate unless you guys have done the homework of the areas of where we're strong, where we're weak, and where we need to go, and have that somehow be communicated so that the staff has trust in your decision making, because right now there's a little bit of distrust, quite frankly, and I think you could earn the trust of staff by just having some honest communication about that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Anita Tanini, 8 Columbus Ave. I have to tell you, I'm very disappointed in the school committee. I think you've done this school system, our district, our town, and Dr. Lang a huge disservice. This should have been a time when we brought the community together. You had an opportunity to reach out to the teachers, to the parents, to find out what was important. This was a time to bring us all together. Instead, what we've done is we created controversy. Again, I don't think we need this and I'm not saying that he's not the best candidate, and I'm not saying that we should have gone through a process. All I'm saying is I would have liked to understand what priorities, what qualifications this school committee is looking for in a candidate. I would like then to be presented with a candidate that you have told me these are the qualifications we are looking for, with the input of teachers, with the input of parents, and this is the best candidate we're proposing. Instead, I had to rely on the school committee from Lowell, because they went through, thank God, they went through a very thorough due diligence and watch a video to understand where Dr. Lang stands. And by the way, I've heard great things about you from a lot of people. So I am very happy about this candidate, but I've got to say, you had a perfect opportunity. You guys blew it. I do have questions, though, since I don't know what qualifications you're looking for, that I would like possibly asked during this open forum. I can read them out loud, or I can give you the sheet. But what I would like is, one of the questions I have is, what are the methods you would use to keep yourself and the school committee current on important matters? What should a school committee member do when contacted by a parent with a school problem? What is your philosophy on delegating authority? How do you maintain accountability?
Can you just slow down for a second?
Sorry, I'll give you the copy.
Okay.
You guys
Fine,
can
fine.
ask it.
All right.
But again, my point in all this is you had a perfect opportunity.
Why don't you read them off so that people know?
All right. What is your philosophy on delegating authority? How do you maintain accountability? And I like Dr. Lang to touch upon, in particular, this assistant superintendent, the tech director, the business manager, the SPED director, and principals, right? I want to understand his philosophy on accountability. What are the important things a good principal does? I like to understand those qualities. What strategies do you have to increase parent engagement? How do you measure that? Community engagement, how would you measure that? Describe your vision of a world-class education system. As a superintendent, you must ensure that the success of such a district, and how would you measure the success? I also like to understand the actions, plans, goals for the first 100 days. I like to understand what the goals are of the school committee for those 100 days, for the first 6 months, and how do we measure this? High-performing students and accountability are priorities. How will you assess the district's current levels of performance, program effectiveness, and teacher effectiveness? I like to understand experience with intergovernmental relationships, specifically what ways have you interacted with local government entities and officials? Motivating others to follow your lead, especially on the face of resistance, is a key leadership trait. I would like to describe a situation in which you've motivated others to follow your lead, and how did you accomplish that, and how did you resolve that? And then I'd like to understand your thoughts on dual enrollment and how you would plan on rolling that out. Those are just my questions that I only had, in all honesty, a day to put together. But these are important to me off the top of my head, and I'm sure other parents would also have other concerns and questions that are important to them. And I think you should have, and I'm not saying that this couldn't have made a decision in 2 weeks, but you should have first brought everybody together, asked us what we were concerned about, interviewed Dr. Lang, and you would have had all of us on board. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Janet Askenberg, 185 Westford Street. I'm formerly a member of the school committee and currently a member of the Board of Selectmen. I guess I'd like to take a little different tactic. I'd like to congratulate the school committee and the school district overall, especially the teachers, that despite a tough year filled with very negative news reports, Chelmsford remains a town and a school district that attracts exceptional candidates like Mr. Lang. I'm very impressed with his credentials. I appreciate this process, and I hope that you seriously consider him as our next superintendent. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is George Dixon, 15 Edgelon Avenue, North Chelmsford. And I'm speaking as a citizen tonight, a resident. I am a member of the Board of Selectmen, but I'm a proud graduate of Chelmsford High School. My father was a proud graduate of Chelmsford High School, as my 2 children. And I have a lot of confidence in you people to make the right decision. I think a lot of people have brought up great points today on both sides of the fence. So I'm not really trying to take a side. All I know is I've been proud all my life. I'm 68 years old. And nothing I've been more proud of than to say that I'm from Chelmsford and I graduated from Chelmsford High School. And I would love to see that brought back, that spirit, that feeling, that tradition, that pride brought back to the future graduates of Chelmsford, the Chelmsford school system. And I do believe that Mr. Lang must realize that we do have a good system. Is it slightly flawed maybe right now, or is it a little bit, I don't want to say flawed, is it maybe not as strong as it once was, but not that far away?
Let's call it recovery.
Okay, because you're on the fast track. You've made some great moves. You hired a great financial person. You just hired a great principal for the Chelmsford High School. And my only concern with if there is not some decision made, and I do believe in transparency, as I said, so many people have spoken and spoken very eloquently this evening. But if my only concern is if you, and it may be just be that you have to work a lot more hours and a lot more diligently to get it all in what they're looking for. You know, I think we could be losing a lot of our good educators if a decision is not made in a relatively quick time. You know, we have good teachers, a lot of great teachers in our system. And, you know, they've hung in there with us, and they've done a great job. And I think they're looking for some stability. And I think, you know, they see some stability now, and they're on the positive track because of the hiring of the new principal at the high school, because of the new finance director. And if Mr. Lang is the right guy, or if somebody else is the right guy, I would think that you just have to decide. And I have the utmost respect for the integrity of each and every one of you people. I don't believe there's any shenanigans going on, but people who are looking for transparency, you know, that's, you know, there are a lot of things, maybe a lot of questions that have to be answered, but maybe they should be done as quickly as possible, because if we have the right candidate, we shouldn't let him get away. And I'd just like to see this town become what it was, and people to walk away as proud as I have always been to be a graduate of Chelmsford. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, Tom is patient. Wait, Tom, there's probably someone else who wants to talk first.
Really? My name is Tom Gilroy. I'm a resident of Chelmsford for the past 50 years. I live at 14 Timmy Road. A lot of the things that I was going to say have already been covered before, so I won't repeat it. But I think that we're in a very unique situation right now in Chelmsford. We've gone through a very tough year with a lot of issues, financial, morale problems. I think that the time right now is we have to strike while the iron is hot. We have a candidate who has gone through a very extensive vetting process in Lowell. I think he's a great candidate. His resume is very impressive. It would be wonderful if we can go through a real process to do this, but I don't think we have the time. I think that the best thing we could do is to try to have somebody, you know, on board as early as we can this summer, depending upon the negotiations and how his contract is. So it would be my recommendation, okay, as a member of the Finance Committee, to do this as expeditiously as possible. We'll save the money, we'll save the town some money by doing this, but I think we should put together a group of peers, maybe a group of teachers, and go through that process between now and when you vote. You don't have to vote next week. You could vote the week after that. But I think that to do that would lend more credibility to this whole process. And I think that it would probably make a lot of the people that are somewhat on the fence right now a little bit more happy. So I think that if you do that, we'll do it the right way. We'll have more stability in town. We'll keep the all of the negative people off Facebook, and we'll have ourselves a great superintendent beginning next school year. So welcome aboard, Dr. Lang.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Good evening. My name is Maria Santos, and I live at 19 Parkhurst Road, and I'm a parent and a PTO member. I came here tonight because I think it's important that you, when you make this decision, have the total, complete, and utter buy-in from any member of the staff of this system that works in the system. Dr. Lang may be an excellent candidate. I think the last 2 days is the first I heard that we were going to consider him for a superintendent position. That would be wonderful. But it is the first time I've heard it, and I get pretty involved in things. So I think the fact that people don't know that you've been going through this, that it's not you as a committee that has vetted really this candidate. Dr. Lang may be absolutely excellent. I don't know. But many people have said why. We have no source of comparison and so on. So we can't say somebody is superb when we don't have those kinds of comparisons. Your definition of what's required from our superintendent for the town of Chelmsford, I think, is imperative to be known by parents and by other people who are in the system. Not only will you be doing yourselves a favor in making a decision that way, you'll be doing whoever the winning candidate is a favor, because otherwise they're not going to be able to function well within the system. They need to be known and why they're here and why they really want to be in Chelmsford. So I'd just like to say that. The other thing I was concerned about, and I'd like to mention, is that, I've been in Lowell. I came to Chelmsford from Lowell. I was actually in their school system through the 6th grade and then got moved out of the public system into the private system. Many of the teachers I know in Lowell don't send their children to Lowell schools, and that concerns me. However, I think Lowell also has incredible abilities. They're just different from Chelmsford. I would like to know what we want in our system. I'd like to know that the candidate that is chosen to be the superintendent can meet those criteria, and then we move forward. That would be absolutely wonderful. If in between, what you need to do is have some committees that actually meet with the candidates that you present, whatever it is, and you get that buy-in, I think that that's extremely, extremely important, and I would urge you to do that. The other thing to keep in mind is that we are talking about two very different systems when it comes to communicating and dealing with parents. And every time I speak with someone who is in the Lowell system, they tell me about being paid to be a parent coordinator. Well, paid positions is not what we have here. We have parents who volunteer their time through PTOs and who get very involved in this system. So I think it's also important to consider that in your candidate, what sort of communication and ability they have to deal with parents in the system. We remain very key players. We like to say that all the time, although I'm sure many people in administration look at us and say, please go away as soon as possible sometimes. We do remain very key players, and we pay the taxes that end up in the salaries of people. So it's very, very important to also understand that and to be able to have somebody who can actually deal well with parents whoever the candidate is. Okay? And those are my points, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Paul Cullen, town manager, and I really didn't want to come up here first because I really wanted to allow the residents and stakeholders to speak, but I didn't see anybody else moving to the podium. But I did want to address a few words from my perspective in the community. I think ideally, I think it's obvious that in a perfect world, we have done a search process, had the forums. I went through all that when I was part of the process when we hired Dr. Yeoman, and I was part of the sessions and so forth, and all that was fine. But the reality is, and as I said earlier, life happens when you make plans, and I think let's acknowledge the fact, But for the situation with Dr. Lang's candidacy, we wouldn't be sitting here this evening having this conversation or having this process. So I think what we're dealing with here is a unique and extraordinary circumstance. And I think where we are in the community, I've seen that happen from the school committee. I mean, it was with Godspeed that you brought Steve Murray aboard as the high school principal. And let's acknowledge that situation. He was committed to Andover as the high school principal, but had not signed the contract. And clearly his heart was there. We saw that, and we heard the moans from Andover when they lost him. And we saw that situation. And obviously I saw the other process, not directly, but through my finance director and town accountant. In the process, we had to go out again for a second search for a business manager, and then ended up with an excellent choice who, again, I've heard nothing but great things about. What I want to speak to in terms of, from my perspective, is, and I want to remind the committee, because I don't think that point has been brought out, a point has been brought out this evening, is this committee and this community will be beginning a collective bargaining process with the teachers' unions and others starting this fall. And the difficulty we have bringing in a new superintendent a year from now to start out next school year is that we're going to be well into the way of that process and perhaps even heading towards mediation if history is a guide. And the problem with being well under the way at that process at that time is that the new superintendent, who would come a year from now, is not going to be able to have his or her inputs into what do we want to get and what changes do we want to have to that new collective bargaining agreement. Because that would be seen as regressive bargaining and would be going backwards, which then means that you're then going to be set back further as a community because those negotiations would probably be likely for a 3-year contract, and you're going to be set back even further. And let's be honest, that process is an important milestone, and you know, some of you who have been there, what that effort is as part of the community, and it's going to affect you not only in terms of the operations of the district, in terms of what's in the contract regarding time and learning and length of day and so forth and conditions, but it also affects the financial conditions of the community in terms of the money we're going to have to operate the school system, as well as to fund initiatives such as full-day kindergarten and care of our facilities. And the selectmen discussed last night Monday night at its goal session, the issues of capital in this system in terms of the extraordinary capital. We've got to look at those modular classrooms. You know, some of them are a generation old and are not going to last forever. We got to get ahead of that. We also have to look at the issue of the science labs for the middle schools and so forth. The other thing that I would note in terms of this situation is again, it is an extraordinary circumstance where you have a new team coming in. You have a new high school principal who'll be starting with his first class in September, and the same with the business manager coming aboard in July. And I think it would be probably constructive in the long term to have a new superintendent coming in with them at that time to building that dynamic in that team, as opposed to them having an interim situation and then adjusting a year from now. And so I also want to take a moment at this point. I'm not going to ask a question of the candidate, but I want to thank the candidate. I mean, look, everyone, we're all intelligent people. Everyone, before you came here this evening, before you embarked in this effort and announced it, you knew this was going to be a stormy reception. Let's not kid ourselves, because it is out of the norm. And as I said at the Selectmen's meeting on a different matter a couple weeks ago, it's easy to do the normal thing because you don't get criticized. But what you've done is you've taken the courage and I think the desire, and clearly what you're seeing here this evening and have seen is the passion that's in this community, and I commend you for it because it's a tremendous effort. But going back to Dr. Lang, I mean, first of all, we've never met, we've never communicated. This is the first time I've ever had any communication directly with you, but I did take an hour and a half last evening and watched your interview at the Lowell School Committee, and that was impressive. And that's how I knew that your fourth point was brought in your closing statement, because I sat through that, and it was very impressive. And I saw commitments towards a 10-year plan, towards inclusion. But the most important thing that I saw, again, as someone who cares, is the focus is always on the children. And when the question came up, because I'm sure you're going to have similar questions here tonight, but one of the questions was, well, when you're making the budgetary cuts, how do you adjust those? And the question that came is, well, I don't want to cut an area at all unless that affects directly the children in the classroom. And again, many of the priorities that we share as a community. And so I really want to commend you for taking the effort and putting yourself out for the town of Chelmsford. What I'll say to you in closing is, 8 years ago, a 42-year-old gentleman who was a Lowell native from the Highlands, who went to the Washington School, who attended the Daly School, interviewed in the City Hall chambers for a top management position in the city of Lowell, and didn't get that job. However, the next job he applied to, which is myself, was in the town of Chelmsford 8 years ago. I got this job. It's been the best thing that's happened to me. And I'm not looking. I think it's been good for the town of Chelmsford. When the job in Lowell opened subsequently, I did not look to go back there. And I'm not looking to go back there. I'm hoping to retire from this community. And from what I see and saw, I hope and expect that perhaps you'll have the same experience, Jay. And again, I want to thank you for your interest in putting yourself out here for this community. Thank you very much.
Excellent job, Paul.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? I'd just like to comment before we get into the interview. I'm glad that this is being recorded, and I can't wait for it to play because I couldn't be any more proud of our town. There wasn't a presentation that was made tonight that wasn't excellent and very well presented. And that speaks tons for the town and the level of concern that people have here. Anybody that sees this can't help but be impressed. There was an excellent presentation by everyone here. And everything, I know that Dr. Lang was making all kinds of notes. I was making all kinds of notes. The only thing that I want to say before we go forward is that, those of you that watched the Tom Cristiano show or heard Evelyn Thorne, on her broadcast, we were telling everybody what was going to happen, okay? And it was simple. We're going to hire an interim. We're going to go through a year. We're going to listen to the community and establish our goals and all of those things over a year. And in the few days that have passed, everything changed. So we're not at odds with many of the comments that were made here about you should have had a bunch of meetings. We should meet before next Tuesday. Which day would you like, the holiday or Sunday? Or this has been a problem for us, the timing. So I just want to reassure you that we're very sensitive to the quick manner in which we're moving. But it's a very short time period that we've had. And I think, just keep that in mind. We're not irresponsible people. We want to be as responsible as we can be. And we were being as open as we could be, telling everybody the route we were going to take. Unfortunately, well, in one sense, unfortunately, in another sense, fortunately, everything changed. So, hopefully you bear with us. In beginning with the interview, Mr. Lang, and I did ask that he start this way. Most interviews start with you. Would you do a quick summary of your employment history so that those people who haven't watched the previous interview will know how we're starting, and then we'll try to address some of the concerns that were raised tonight.
Sure. No, I'd be happy to, and I appreciate very much the opportunity to come before you tonight and what I call having a conversation. And because I realize this is a unique kind of experience and a unique process to this point, and I truly appreciate having that opportunity. As way of background, and it actually appears more people in Chelmsford have watched my Lowell interview than folks in Lowell. But I have spent my career in the Lowell Public Schools. For the last 12 years, I've worked as the Deputy Superintendent of Finance and Operations in the school department, and in that role, I'm responsible for all of the administrative functions in the district. So that encompasses the personnel office, all hiring and supervision of staff. The technology department works under my purview. All the general business functions, payroll, accounts payable, receivable, grants management, transportation, food services, all of those general business functions fall under my purview, as well as the facilities office. I think what's key in that particular position to know, and I think a lot of times I kind of get pegged as the finance guy, and certainly that is my background, and certainly that is an area of expertise for me. But in Lowell and in the Lowell Public Schools, the other assistant superintendents and I work very closely. So Claire Abrams is our assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction. Janine Durkin is our assistant superintendent for student support services. And then we've always had a very qualified and well-respected leader, and Gene Franco is our superintendent right now. The four of us really function very well as a core team. We definitely believe in shared leadership among the team, and that's really important to us. So it's not that I just handle my particular area of expertise, but we really as a group collectively make the decisions that guide the work of the district. And when we're implementing a curriculum initiative, I'm at that table and I'm part of that process. When we're talking about how we're going to deal with different issues in the district, fluctuations in populations, special education programming and enhancements, we're all at that table together. And I really do think, and I believe personally, that by bringing multiple voices to the table when you're making decisions, and they're well-informed decisions, it benefits the work of the district. So my last 12 years have been in that role. Prior to that, I was the coordinator of extended time programs and the director of community schools, which is a similar type function, where we tried to model a program in Lowell after a very well-received program in Cambridge, a community schools initiative, where we turned our schools into community programs after hours. So they served the general education function during the day, and then after school we tried to infuse and really extend the learning day for our students. And we provided educational opportunities and human service and social service opportunities, and that was a primary function of my work prior to assuming this role. at the very early onset of my career, as was mentioned earlier, I had the great opportunity to teach and to teach at Chelmsford High School. And when I was actually going through college, I was a little unsure what I wanted to do career-wise. But I knew at some point that all of my different jobs and all of my interests really related to working with kids in different capacities, whether it was academics or sports. I was very active with the Little Leagues and basketball leagues, CYOs, things of that sort in Lowell. And all of my different work experiences revolved around kids. And I knew at some point that that was going to be my calling, was really to work with students. My career really has just been incredible opportunities. So I was given that opportunity at Chelmsford High School. I loved it. I certainly could have stayed teaching and moving up through the Chelmsford Public Schools. At the time, Lowell had received an enterprise community grant to really spark development within the community, and was given the opportunity to basically go and initiate that community schools program. And I remember at the time, Steve Meidel was the principal of the high school. Jeff Doherty was my dean. We had a long conversation about this because I was torn. I very much liked being in the classroom, and I kind of wondered where my career was going. But when you're presented with such an opportunity at that age, and Lowell was certainly the community, I'm from Lowell and was covered earlier, it was very comfortable for me. It was just an opportunity I couldn't pass. So I did go back to Lowell and started up that program. At that point in time, my undergraduate work and my educational credentials were really around management and finance, and obviously had a solid footing. But where I was going to be working in the school department, I thought it was very important that I have some education credentials, because that was going to be the focus of my work. So I did go back to UMass Lowell and earn my master's degree in educational administration. And right at that point in time, George Sapasaris was the superintendent at Lowell. He was retiring. Carla Bear was coming in. And Carla saw something in me, and she's kind of been a mentor through the years, that I had a future in education and obviously within the Lowell schools. A couple of years on the job with her, she tapped me to be the assistant superintendent for finance and operations. And we had a long talk because I was coming from a less traditional background of working in an education community, really the importance of kind of building up your educational credentials, because again, in Lowell and very similar to in Chelmsford, you need to be well-rounded. You need to be comfortable in schools. You need to be comfortable in classrooms when you're having conversations with teachers about student achievement and pushing educational excellence. So she really pushed me to go back to school again to UMass Lowell and earn a doctorate in education. And the school committee really supported me in doing that. And just this past year, I completed my dissertation and graduated with my doctorate in education. And educational leadership was my program track. Very proud of that. And that is something that I bring to the table also credential-wise. So I know I get kind of pegged as the finance guy, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I really do consider myself an educational leader, and that's something that I've been able to bring to the Lowell schools. I don't take this opportunity lightly, even to come in and chat with you tonight about the possibility here in Chelmsford. I had, and again, I'm very proud of, being a Lowell kid, living in Lowell, and I really don't look at it as kind of a disadvantage, going through the school system and ultimately not receiving that position. I know a gentleman spoke earlier about commitment. I'm committed to being a superintendent. And I knew at about a year or so ago that I was ready. I think it's very important at what point of your career you decide you want to be a superintendent. A lot of folks wait until later in life to make that transition, but it is a very difficult, grueling, and demanding job. I think it's a benefit. I'm 42 years old. Paul, I didn't know we went to the Washington or the Daily together. This this could be a storybook story here, but yeah. Well, that's okay. But I'm getting off track. I'm sorry. What did I just say?
You were talking about
You were talking about one of the people that
I'm
said.
sorry. Yeah. I think, again, if I hadn't applied for the Lowell job and gone through that process, it would have been something I regretted, because that is my community. I wanted to give it a go, but I knew I was ready to be a superintendent. So, I was satisfied with how the process went. I, went through the MASC process. My interviews I thought I did fine with. I leave knowing I left nothing on the table. There's nothing I could have done differently to effectuate the outcome, and I'm satisfied with that. But I know at this point in time, I want to be a superintendent, and my desire was really to, I was going to work next year in Lowell, finish out my contract, and over the course of the summer and fall, be looking for other opportunities. You start getting some other districts that said, hey, you happen to be exactly what we might need at this time. And I really do think these things are all about timing and fit. And there are some things that you just can't take into play. And I think the situation and the circumstances in Chelmsford, I think my background and my focus just kind of align. It's the perfect storm. So that's why I'm here to kind of talk to you tonight. I'm very interested in having the conversation, and hopefully that gives you a little idea of kind of where I am, how I'm coming at this, and happy to continue the talk.
Yeah, well, anybody who would like to get started, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of questions.
Transparency is the word of the day, and I'll have it be known that each of us had an opportunity to meet with Dr. Lang. I happened to meet with him before he was Dr. Lang, so congratulations.
Thank you.
I sat down with Dr. Lang, and we spoke for 3 hours, maybe a little bit more. I was very comfortable with our conversation. I think he is an incredible candidate, and we would be lucky to have him as a superintendent. That was the path that everything was going down. And I had a very sleepless night on Tuesday night, realizing that I have always said, since I was elected, that every position in our system should be posted. Every job should be put up so anyone can apply and be considered. Now we're at a position where we're challenged there. And so I talked to our chairman and told him how this is going against everything I believe in. And he understood. I called Jay this morning, Dr. Lang, and I told him how I felt, that I don't want to blindside him, that I feel that we need to have a process. We need to post and vet candidates and get the best one for our system. I fully believe if we had that process, Dr. Lang would be that person. I said that to him today on the phone. I'm uncomfortable with a process that doesn't go through that vetting process. I won't be the person to stand in your way. I just need to say that. That's my hope for our district. So having said that, and get it out of the way, I'd like to talk about special education. We are in a place now where, and many communities are facing the same situation we are. I think I was made aware of that when we spoke to Beverly Peisch, who's the chairman of Alice Peisch, sorry, chairman of the Education Committee in the House. And I said, we have people who come to our district for our special education services. And she kind of looked at me, rolled her eyes, and she said, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. It is something that is unique perhaps to the Massachusetts. We do have great special education. I want the services that we provide to not only be good, I want them to be great. I want them to improve as we go along. I never want to be in a position where we say, we don't want to be the best system for special education because it's too costly. Mm-hmm. What can you do? I am aware that you have a unique situation with special education. We've talked about that. What are your ideas about making sure that our services are the best we can provide, but also be able to pay for them?
On several levels. I think first, and when we did talk about this, I look at this from very different angles. I'm a parent I have 3 sons. I have twin boys that are 15 and a younger son that's 12. 2 of my 3 children are special needs students, and they, have IEPs. They attend school in Lowell. So I've gone through the process as a parent, and I also kind of have the hat of being a district administrator. And I have to say, first and foremost, that it's imperative to me, just as an educator, that we never pit a particular one group of student against another. I think the discussion has to be about educating all students and to the very best of our ability. I think the struggles in Chelmsford are not unlike Lowell in the fact that there's an increasing population, particularly we're seeing it in Lowell, of CSA students or students with autism on the autism spectrum. For us, it's an actual challenge of physical space in our buildings because we really believe as a district, and I believe this, that we should provide programming to students in our district whenever we possibly can. So we have actually been very successful in Lowell in utilizing some of our buildings that were non-mainstream buildings to develop areas and classrooms for some of our special populations. Excuse me. We've been able to do it so that it's cost effective. I think for Chelmsford, the advantage that you have is you seem to actually have some space where we're maxed out space-wise in schools. I know you have some areas at the Westlands and other buildings where you potentially, might have some flex space to be able to do some programming.
Maybe not after you get full-day kindergarten for us.
That's true. I'm sure we'll talk about that later on. For us, what we've been able to do is actually set up a revenue account, and when we would have to work with the town side on this, and I think that's where the communication is so critical. But we were able to take the vote to establish a non-resident student tuition account. And basically, if we can develop a program in district, and let's say we have an elementary level class for CSA students, and we know comfortably it's a class that can accommodate 8 to 9 students. What we may do, if we actually just have a population of, say, 5 students in the district that we can serve, we'll serve those 5 students, and we'll let it be known to other districts in the area that we would be able to tuition in their 4 students to take some revenue into the program. At a minimum, it helps defray the cost of operating that classroom in district. So it's a win for us because we keep the kids, in Lowell, in our school, in our program, and we really feel we do a better job than would happen if they went to an out-of-district placement. And it also controls costs. That is kind of the minimum that you're looking for. There are situations where, again, depending on space, and obviously I know the kindergarten discussion will come into this, they could potentially generate some revenue for you. And that revenue could then go to offset other programs. A lot of it is process in setting up the necessary votes and accounts and having that discussion with Town Hall with how you're going to handle these special revenues because you want everyone to know what you're doing. School departments aren't set up necessarily to be businesses or run businesses, but there are certain opportunities you have, and I think I have the experience in Lowell doing that, that I might be able to come in and actually take a look at your programming and see other ways to either do it more cost effectively to then free up that revenue to go towards other areas of the budget, or look into opportunities to open up some revenue creating areas. And again, it's a win-win because you're keeping your students in district. That's something that I look at. But I do look at it from 2 hats, right? I have the parent hat that I've gone through, and I also have the district hat, so I can wear both. I think in Lowell, another thing that I'm kind of proud of, over the last couple of years, we really looked at all of our special programs in special ed, and we realized we were doing the students a disservice. So transitions are very difficult for students, particularly CSA students. And we previously had a structure to no fault of its own. It's just our space was so tight, we would find different spaces in the district, and we would open up different classrooms. But we had a situation where, say, a CSA student at 3 years old would be coming into a preschool, and they would be assigned to building A. And then for kindergarten, they might have to go to a different building for B. And then we had another program for grades 1 through 3, so they might have 3 transitions in 3 years, and that's such a tough population, and we were doing them a disservice. So we really actually, as a group, sat down and said, we've got to come up with a better pattern for this, and when we enroll a child in pre-K, we've got to find a feeder so that they can stay in that building until they take the natural progression to middle school. So that's some advocacy work that occurred within the district, and we also had to bring that to our school committee and sell it with parents. And so this is the final year of that rollout and implementation, so I'm very proud of that as an administrator. I think the other thing sped-wise, and I may have talked about this previously also, you have different opportunities, and this happened to me as a parent where, and again, I'm coming at this from a parent, but who has an education background. I was going to an IEP meeting for one of my sons because it was their annual review meeting. And, you walk into the meeting and they give you all these test results and information on your child, and you're at the table trying to make decisions. And I said, geez, it would have been nice to get this information a couple days in advance to be able to review it. And, one of the SPED folks said, well, if you wanted it 48 hours in advance, you had to request, put a written notice in. And I said, that's kind of crazy, So, as a district administrator, I come back and I say, yeah, technically, legally, you don't have to do it, but let's do it. Let's actually just implement that because it's good for parents, it's good for kids. You want people to be part of a team if they're making that team decision. Don't have half the team have the information and the other half of the team not. So, those is kind of the framework that I would look at, and some of the things that are important to me. But I do look at it from both lenses. I hope that addresses your question.
Certainly did. Thank you. I'm not going to hog it. It's your turn. We'll pass the mic until Evelyn gets here.
Well, I'll hog it. Evelyn's not here. I'm going to take advantage.
And that's the end of it.
Just to follow on to that, one of the issues that we'd had was controlling the costs in the SPED program. Can you talk a little bit about how Lowell accounts for the costs and the expenses associated with that program?
From a cost control standpoint?
Sure.
I mean, it's very difficult. You go into a budget year, and the budget document is your plan in July of how you're going to actually spend your money. If you go back even earlier, that the importance of the collective bargaining piece is critical because it's really in collective bargaining that you're going to set up the parameters for which your budget is built on. But you go into the year, with the knowns, and again, there are some situations in special education that are just unknowns. You can have a child move into the district, after the first day of school, and you're not aware of that. A big issue we're having lately is, and I'm not sure it's as big of an issue in Chelmsford, but DSS placements. So DSS will actually take a Lowell student out of the district, place them in, say, a group home or a residential facility elsewhere in the state. We're immediately on the hook for that tuition. We really don't even have a proper place at the table when that decision is being made because DSS has the authority to do that, and then through the advisory, the charge back just comes to us. Those are things that actually require some legislative lobbying. So as an advocacy group, and I think the superintendents, and particularly the urban superintendents, have taken that on as an issue with the legislature to talk to them and actually show them the implications of when DSS or another state agency follows the law, how it impacts the individual community. So there is a level of advocacy that has to happen with that. I think the biggest issue you have to have, and what we set up in Lowell, is basically our SPED team, our SPED admin team, and myself, and the other assistant superintendent for student support, meet every couple of weeks, and we look at all the kids. Any kids coming, any kids going, anyone in the pipeline, just so that everyone's aware. There could be a situation, and it happens, where you don't expect something. You can't budget for everything. The child moves in, you have to react. But I think it's being on top of things, and when the issue happens, you immediately plan. So, we have a protocol where, we have kind of a running list of any issues that have come up through the budget. So when we issue our monthly finance reports to the school committee, or we have our quarterly reports with the finance board, we can say this. A, B, and C were unexpected. They were unanticipated. Here's what happened. That's where the transparency comes in place, right? No one can predict this stuff, but you have to put it out there. Here's what happened. Here's our recommendation to deal with it for this year. This is going to be the budget impact for the following year. And obviously you have to work within your allocation for the year, so you do need someone who's pretty savvy and can understand where you can get funding from. What we typically do in Lowell is try to reserve the fourth quarter circuit breaker payment, and we use that as a cushion to start the next year's budget. That also, you have to be on the same page, us with City Hall, you have to be with Town Hall, so that it doesn't look like you just have a little pot of revenue sitting there and no one knows why it's there. So that's where again, transparency comes in place on the finances. You never want someone to be kind of questioning, where the money is, why it was there. So that's critical, and that's really about relationship building with staff in your department as well as Town or City Hall. Again, it's going to happen, but I think it's more how you react to it, and being on the offensive as opposed to being on the defense.
Or to use a phrase used earlier tonight, it's a dilemma, not a crisis. If you bring it forward as soon as you learn of it. stepping away a little bit from just the sped component, can you talk a little bit about how you build the budget in Lowell and what that calendar looks like, what kind of input you get from the various building and other responsibility centers, and not only how it's put together, but then how it's monitored as you go through the year?
Sure. And this is a little different in Lowell than it would be in Chelmsford because of the timing. We are very reliant on Chapter 78 because it pays for 85+% of our budget. So we can't actually do much work with the budget revenue side until, at a minimum, the House budget comes out. The governor's budget sometimes at the end of January, this year it was late because of the new governor, gives you some indication of what's going to happen with the Chapter 70 formula, but typically we can't tie into a number until sometime mid to late April. So that's when our real kind of work, kind of going public with revenue happens. What we end up doing over the fall, and I think this would be more in line with Chelmsford because your numbers are a little bit more reliable. I start by actually going out to each of the schools and having a budget meeting with the principal, the admin team, to talk about, to make sure we're all on the same page, identify all existing staff, programs, costs. We call it a reconciliation. So we do that in the fall, and then we flag any areas of concern for the following year. So when the individual schools are putting together their school improvement plan, and it ties up to the district level, they're identifying deficiencies or areas of interest that they want to work on, and then we actually try to identify what type of budget situation would be necessary to help them accomplish those goals for the year. So it's kind of a rolling sheet of ads or wants. That happens with each of the individual schools. And then also I would probably say around between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we would start having individual department meetings. So each individual department manager would come and sit with me and talk about their budget for the year. Grants play a significant role in Lowell. We probably receive between 22 and 24 million in grants a year, which is pretty significant. And the volatility a lot of our grants are entitlement grants, so they're not competitive grants that you're going after, but your Title 1, 2, and 3 are entitlement grants. But the volatility in those can really set you back because our grants at this point in time, we've sustained so many cuts over the years, are really all personnel. So there's not a lot of extra on the grants that aren't tied to people, and people cuts are the toughest to deal with. But as we have that, so we're having a local budget discussion, we're also having a grant discussion, and that takes place between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So then we actually produce, myself and we have a grants administrator, our projected budget. We don't share this publicly, but it's our projected budget that happens right after the first of the year, and we then know what our cost is going to be. So we know what a level service budget is going to cost, and we also then know what our kind of want budget is going to cost. We don't do wishes, so the wants have to be tied to your individual school improvement plans. It all has to feed back to the school level. And then those discussions start to happen with the school committee. So we won't talk about revenue because we don't know what's going to happen with Chapter 70, but we start for the school committee laying out what the plan would be. Here's what we're going to need for the level service budget. We know it's going to be $3 million more than the previous year. We're really going to need $4 million if we're going to carry out the final phase of the SPED realignment. So we lay that all out during the course of the spring. And then actually just last evening was when we presented our budget to the school committee. They'll take it under consideration. We'll set up a number of budget hearings, and those will happen over the next few weeks. While all this is going on, it's key to really have the input of the city manager's office and the finance team. And I think one of the things that Lowell does well, and I'm proud of, is our relationships with City Hall and our relationships with the treasurer and auditor and the CFO. We're all on a monthly finance team. I have a seat at the table. I know what's happening in their budget. They know what's happening in mine. So that communication is critical as we're leading up to the budget recommendation because that really comes from the city manager. Now, we're in a little bit of a different situation because we're usually a district that's below net school spending. Right. We hit net school spending for the first time last year, but we know the minimum number that has to come. I know you're over by about 20% here, which I think just makes those conversations even more critical with the town hall so that no one's getting caught off guard. That would be important to me. But basically, so I think you could probably start rolling out your budget 3 months earlier than we can. The other area of interest, and I'm sorry, we kind of after the fact, so after we have our budget ready, we'll now go out and do a series of community meetings. So in different schools or neighborhoods, we don't get great response, but it's something that's important to us. So we'll have some subcommittee meetings and we'll go out and talk about the budget. Even if residents don't have direct questions, they can at least be informed with what we're doing. I think in your situation, what I would do is actually probably tackle that in the fall. So when you're setting, and we're working with the school committee to set your goals and values for the coming year, have those discussions. And again, because of the number of schools, it'd be a little easier to do here than it would be in Lowell. But you could do school-centered meetings and possibly even get on, say, like a PTO agenda or something. Do that through the course of the fall so that there's agreement around what the budget priorities are going to be. And again, no one's caught off guard. No one's surprised when the budget gets rolled out after the first of the year.
And then monitoring it as once you're in the current fiscal year, can you talk a little bit about what kind of feedback you provide to the school committee, to the community, and what you're doing to stay on top of it and make sure that you're hitting the targets that you'd set?
Sure. The school committee, and again, one of the, I forgot to mention this, when I look at this whole Chelmsford situation, and even, my kind of being aligned to Chelmsford, the same systems you use are the same systems we have in Lowell. So we're Munis for finances, you're Munis here as well. We use TeachPoint for teacher evaluation, you're using the same. We're using ASOP for, right down the line, which is nice for us. But we produce monthly, year-to-date budget reports directly from Munis. They're unaltered. I've been asked in the past, could you make them prettier? Could you, do them in a certain way?
Like them unaltered, yeah.
Yeah. As a finance guy, I don't want to alter them. So you're getting the reports directly from the from the system. So we produce monthly reports, and then typically what will happen, it's very difficult for us to do any projections during the summer because your salary expenses just aren't there. So we'll usually wait until about November to have a meeting with the school committee to do a budget projection. We do budget projections every month internally, but it'll usually be after the second quarter that the committee will be involved. And at that point in time, we'll flag any areas of concern, overages, underspending, bring regular recommendations for budget transfers to the finance subcommittee, which then get referred up to the main school committee for consideration. We try to put off the transfers, like the line item transfers, until the spring, if possible. Personally, when I look at the budget, I don't like to see a lot of transfers. It's just very difficult to track over the course of the year, and I like to see them entered at a particular point in time. So I work with the city auditor to make sure that happens. But at this point of the year, we're actually running weekly budget projections, and it's a manual task that we do. We kind of have a system down pat, but week to week at this point, right after February vacation, because again, if our budget is large, if we make a mistake or a projection is bad, it's not a $10 mistake. It can easily be a $250,000 or $500,000 mistake, and or error. So we're doing them weekly, and typically what I have is I do a projection myself, and then another individual in the office will do a projection just so that we can actually try to match it out and see if there's any discrepancy.
Okay. One of the things that the town manager brought up, some of the challenges that are facing us would be related to facilities and the capital budget. As you may know, we just had an ESCO energy services contract signed about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago now, I guess. Most of that work's been done, so it's time to build a new capital document for the next 10 years. You've done that recently in Lowell, along with the facilities assessment. Can you talk a little bit about that, just how you walk through that process and the sorts of things that you'd be looking for here?
Sure. I think happy to talk about it. The frame that we looked at when we were doing that is we really wanted to get some MSBA money for a new school building project. One of the things that's critical to Lowell, and is going to be critical to Chelmsford, if you were anticipating any school building over the coming years, you have to get in the pipeline now. To wait much longer to even get into the pipeline is just going to put you that much further back on a capital project. So we knew that we had some middle school issues, and we also had a high school issue. About 3 years ago, no, I'm sorry, it was 4 years ago at this point in time, we had a little blip in kindergarten enrollment in the district, and the number just came in about 125 students higher than we anticipated. So, now again, we have 13 schools. You kind of spread it over, but when class size starts to jump, 2 or 3 kids in a year, something's wrong. We just, for that first year, monitored it, kind of chalked it up as a blip. Second year, it happened again. And we said, well, wow, something's going on here with our projections. So we brought in NESDEC to do a formal projection and had them compare their formula to ours to find out what was happening. And basically, it's a combination of, we do have an increased birth rate in the city, so our actual enrollment is projected to go up. It's starting very progressively. It's now at the 2nd grade. So this isn't a bubble that's working its way through the system. It's an actual enrollment spike. The other issue that we have is some volatility with immigrants coming into the community that you just can't plan for. And you never know when they're going to come, and you never know at what grade level they're going to have students. So you're not going to have that volatility here, but that is something that we have to deal with in Lowell. So we knew, based on our projections, that we now have this enrollment spike, grades, K1, 2. And our buildings at the middle school level can't accommodate these folks coming up. Right now, our middle school numbers are anywhere between 26 and 28, which is high for us. We really want them to be, 26, but they're on the higher end. And we know in 2 years' time, we're going to have to do something because the numbers are jumping. We also know you've got to start looking further down the line, because 4 years later, these kids are going to high school. And if you're going to do a major high school building project in Lowell, that could easily take 5 to 7 years. So we had to get in the pipeline. We knew, when Lowell comes to the MSBA for a school building project, we're reimbursed at an 80% level. Huge number. The MSBA puts aside $500 million a year for building. The high school project that we're pushing right now is going to run anywhere between $250 and $300 million. They're a little scared when we come looking for money, because it's going to cost them some money. We knew we needed some credibility when we went to them in the plan, and we knew we wanted to take a look at both middle and high school programming. So it was important to us to bring in a firm to work with me in my office to really do a comprehensive review. So we issued an RFP. We interviewed a number of different architectural firms, and we selected OMR Architects 2 years ago. And we wanted them to come in as a third party and do a comprehensive facilities assessment, give us an actual report on everything that's happening physical plant-wise in the schools, so that we could use that both internally as part of the city's capital plan, but also we would have the backup for when we submitted the MSBA application for the high school. And we know when you submit the application, if you have kind of certified backup or third-party backup, that's going to be more advantageous to the SBA. It's going to have more credibility when it gets there. And again, when you're throwing a big number at them like that, you need the credibility. You've got to be working to push your project, but you've got to have the backing. So over the course of the whole school year, we really had different school folks come together. They served on working groups. OMR had folks in the district really documenting all the existing conditions. We knew we had to get into the city pipeline. Selfishly also, Lowell had done a huge capital project building with George Sapasaris when he was superintendent through the 80s and 90s. And we knew the 20-year notes on all those schools were coming off. And if we don't bring school projects forward, other projects are going to go forward in the community. And as those 20-year notes come up, we want to really be in there in the forefront to say, you invested 20 years ago in the schools. What everyone now considers still a new school, the systems are starting to fail. So your roofs are failing, your HVAC is failing, and we want to have that money be reinvested. But we want to get that 80% leverage from the MSBA so that we can go further. So that's what was critical for us to have that plan. So OMR worked with us with the working groups over the course of the year, so we have that comprehensive facilities assessment. We then used that assessment and tool when I wrote the application for the Lowell High School project. We've been very successful getting projects funded. A lot of it, again, is the relationships and knowing the process, and that's, I think, something that I would bring to this position. It's just absolutely critical as a district and as a community that you agree with what the next steps are. And I think sometimes it's not big money, but sometimes that third party coming in to kind of lead some of that is helpful. So that's the course we took. Personally in Lowell, when I first came on board back in 2003, we built the Stocklosa Middle School in the acre. Very happy to have been the kind of the point person on that for the district. Built the Maury Elementary School. That building we actually built within 18 inches. We built the new building within 18 inches of the old building. Construction was going on while the kids were still in school. It was a lot of different challenges, but it was a lot of fun, and I like that part of the work. So the high school project was going to be the next project, kind of going forward. But that's how we did it. We put that plan together. City manager's happy because then when he's putting his capital plan together, we have a third party that said, all right, here are the costs, in year one. You've also got to be concerned about the escalators and the escalating costs. So we know if we're not going to do this particular project until 18 or 19, you got to put an accelerator in there so that you can budget properly. And that's been helpful to us in Lowell.
Talking about the connections that you made a little bit with the MSBA project, the high school project, you are coming in with a person with a reputation as with a financial background, maybe less so in terms of curriculum. Can you talk about a little bit about the resources that you'd have, the connections you've made over the years? If you have a question about where's the state going with educator evaluations, do you have people that you can reach out to?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And even, again, I know I'm the finance guy, but a lot of our work really is working hand in hand with the different offices. Through the, my direct work, I'm very happy to have been part of the negotiations for the new teacher evaluation tool that we're implementing at Lowell. So you get to see the nuts and bolts of the whole tool, how it's going to be implemented, how it's going to impact student achievement and learning. That's very helpful. Lowell, again, is a place where, if the state wants to try an initiative, it's really cutting edge for urban education. They come to Lowell to do that. So, our contacts with the DOE have been great. I think the partnerships that we've developed with UMass Lowell, in particular the Graduate School of Ed, they're really, starting to accelerate. They haven't had an undergrad program in education, but over the next 2 years, they're going to be phasing one in. And what we've been able to do is really create some good contacts and some programs there, bring them into the district. And we're also able to leverage their resources. One of the it's very early on in the discussions, but I think Lowell, and I may have mentioned this to you, is kind of really ripe for, some kind of like a learning lab, like a Northeast learning lab working with the Graduate School of Education. Obviously, I was interested in urban issues, but I think, even just the greater Lowell community is just so diverse that if you have those connections with the college, it's a great resource. I mean, on the other end, I mentioned, Carla Bear has been a mentor to me, and, obviously she's the one that developed the educator evaluation tool. So if I ever have a question, I call Carla. I have those resources. I'm not afraid to acknowledge what isn't my area of expertise and go after the very best person to bring that to the table. I think what I have the ability to do is really, know what I do well, know what I know well, and get that done, and access the resources to bring into the community to areas that might not be my focal point. We develop a lot of internal capacity within the district, and we're very, frequently kind of tapping different people to be the expert in different areas. People really become part of a team, and I think it's just that whole kind of shared leadership model that I'd certainly promote, and we promote in Lowell. I would want to bring that here as well.
I think we can go a couple of different ways from that statement. I know one of the things that Al's been interested in here, going back to your work with UMass Lowell, is the extended
Well, the program where the teachers are certified or empowered by both the community college and the school district, but the thing that's particularly appealing to me is that the instruction's within the high school. If you could just talk about that for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have two different avenues on that. So we have partnerships with UMass Lowell and Middlesex Community College for what we call the dual enrollment program. So Lowell High School students, and I just think this is an incredible resource for them and also our community, and it really helps keep people at Lowell High School and have them want to be part of the high school. The partnership with UMass Lowell allows primarily juniors and seniors. Now, again, you have to meet certain prerequisites and be able to take the college level courses, but they can attend college course at UMass Lowell each semester, really at no cost to them. And I think it's a win-win for the district and it's a win-win for the college because on the college front, they certainly, once they hit the minimum number of students that they have to run a course, it's not anything extra on them cost-wise to allow a Lowell High School student into the course and get that college experience. I think there's something to be said for a high school student actually physically going to college and just kind of showing what is going to happen after they get out of college. So that's our kind of UMass Lowell partnership. The other partnership we have, which is very interesting also, is with Middlesex Community College, and that's on campus. So what we ended up doing is we wanted to give our kids the opportunity to earn both Lowell High School credit for taking courses as well as college credit, because college credit at Middlesex Community College, it will count the same as college credit at UMass Lowell if you go to any of the state institutions. So again, primarily juniors and seniors. It's not unheard of that a sophomore will take a class, but it's primarily juniors and seniors. Sign up for core courses or elective courses that they can take at Lowell High School. We've had some of our Lowell High School teachers who are adjunct or teachers also for Middlesex, so they have to go through a kind of a governance program to get the course that they're teaching accepted at the college level, because there is a certain amount of rigor that has to go into it. But they do that, and what the students will do at the high school is actually enroll at the high school. They don't have to leave. They take the course taught by the teacher, who's a Lowell High School teacher, and they're issued both Lowell High School and dual enrollment credit. We have a deal with Middlesex Community College where we pay just a fraction of the tuition costs, basically because it's our staff teaching the course, and it's a paper transaction just to be able to get the college credits. But the legitimate college credits, it's a legitimate course, and that's something really that you just need to go out and get. You need to, at UMass Lowell, call Chancellor Meehan, go meet with him, set this kind of a program up and see what it would take to get Chelmsford into that. At Middlesex, the same thing. It's just such a great opportunity to expose our kids to what college and beyond is going to be. It's the hook to get them there, and it's an incredible program. So that I was, would happily bring that to Chelmsford. I was a little surprised that some of that wasn't already working. There's nothing to say that you have to do it solely with Middlesex and UMass. If you have a partnership with Northern Essex or anywhere else, you certainly could do that. But it's a huge program for us, and that would be exciting work.
If I could get one more question, we're going to get Mr. Lapoli a chance to ask a couple of things. The people in the trenches are the heart and soul of the school district. What do you look for in a principal? And then, related to that, when you go into a classroom, what do you want to see the teacher doing, or what do you want to see them projecting?
Sure. I think one of the speakers earlier alluded to this when they talked about what I look for in hiring a principal, and there was a comment about kind of going out to get the person. I think sometimes in education you can become complacent and almost get into a process where, you post a job, you wait for people to come to you. Ironically, we're talking about this tonight, but you post a job, you wait for people to come to you, and you try to make your selection from whoever comes your way. When it comes to being, a central office administrator, a building principal in particular, it's such an important role. You have to have built a network to be able to go out and recruit some of the best talent to come into that job. So you have to reach out to, your grad schools, your other school systems that may have someone that wants to take a leap or to try a change. You've got to proactively go out and bring in the best people that are going to help you with your school system. I look for someone in a principal who, can really shares that vision that students are really going to be at the center of their decision making. We share that in Lowell. I know you do in Chelmsford as well. But if you look at issues that are going to come before you and you're making those decisions based on students being at the center, that's a good person, in my opinion. You want someone who's innovative. You think innovation, you immediately think technology, but it also can mean, someone who likes to work, with teachers and groups. There's been a lot of work on, developing professional learning communities and culture within buildings. Someone who's going to be positive, someone who wants to really engage and be a learner themselves of the latest, technologies and uses of curricula in the classrooms. I want a principal who's very comfortable going in classrooms, working side by side with teachers. I'm not a top-down person myself. I like someone who likes to lead by example, who's kind of a consensus builder, who's inclusive in their decision making, who's thoughtful, who really is committed and passionate about why they want to be an educator. I think when it comes to teachers, I look for people, and I would impress upon principals when they're doing hiring to really hire people who are engaged, who again, we promote students being lifelong learners. You want teachers to be lifelong learners. You want teachers to be excited about being in classrooms. I look back to myself and I think about, who are the teachers that had a most significant impact on me. Again, I went to Lowell High School. Mr. Garside was my biology teacher. He made the lessons come alive, right? It was engaging. It was current. The job of a teacher is incredibly difficult. I mean, they're performing all day long. It's exhausting work. You have to capture kids. You have to engage them in the lessons. You've got to push all kids, and I think that the challenge for a teacher these days is you have so many levels of students in front of you. People say, well, we need to differentiate instruction. Well, how do you really do that? And I think the successful teacher and the really, committed and passionate teacher put so much time before they get into a classroom that really for one lesson, they may have developed multiple lesson plans. And they're going to target this particular group of students using this skill, and they're going to go towards another group of students, and they know they need a little remedial work, so they're going to break the lesson down for them differently. Again, I mean, it's just exhausting work, and you need to have someone in there who's committed and who's willing to work. For me personally, the other thing that I like is, in technology is data and, how we use data to inform our practice. So when we look at curriculum, and right now under curriculum, we take a look at formative assessments and, how we actually use formative assessments to drive instruction. One of the issues that we have, I think in Lowell, and it happens in a lot of communities, is you almost have too much data sometimes to really have it be effective. There's educators love acronyms, and DRIP sometimes you hear. Data-rich, information poor, and you have so many different assessments that you use. Again, it's exhausting for the kids that have to take them. It's exhausting for the teachers if they're not using them. And part of the work that we've done at Lowell is trying to figure out ways to provide teachers what we call it kind of the classroom dashboard. So behind the scenes, someone who likes working with data is putting it all together for them, so that when they get a snapshot of what's happening in their classroom, it's looking at how do the kids do on the latest benchmark assessment. Are they using SRI? We use Galileo in the middle schools. Fontes and Patel at the elementary levels. You've got so many different data points. You've got to put it in a way that's easy for teachers to understand, so that data actually means something to them and that they can change the instruction in the classroom. So I would look for staff, both teachers as well as building administrators, who want to get into the data, who want to make it come alive, who want to use it to really change their practice. That would be important to me.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lapoli, and then Bob, we can...
I didn't realize Mike was going to play 500 questions. So
I'm only halfway through.
You have a chance too, okay? So.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lang. I know this is going to be a little bit of a long process tonight, and I appreciate you being in front of our parents today and our community, and being on television and allowing people to hear you. Because maybe some of the community doesn't realize, we spent hours with you already, hours. And I want the community to know that, because our job, elected by the community, was to do the heavy lifting and to be able to go back and say, trust us, we did our job, we did the work, and this is what we found. Mm-hmm. So I think what's really important is for the community to know that we've had several conversations. You've had hours of conversations with all the board members collectively. Sure. We really appreciate that, sir. You've worked past 8 o'clock at night, and you've been up as early as 7 o'clock in the morning for our community. And you reacted very quickly and very respectfully, and we appreciate that, and I just want to personally thank you. But I would like to ask you a couple of questions. One of the easiest questions we want to know, and I think what our community wants to know, is, what do you perceive a superintendent's role in our community to be?
I personally think, and this kind of goes across districts, it talks about what do you want in a superintendent? What should that superintendent be? I think the superintendent has to be engaged in the community. I talk about this in Lowell now, and it would be no different if I were in Chelmsford. You want to see the superintendent where you go. And I during my other interview, I talked about, jokingly how my kids won't come to the food store with me anymore because it's a production to get through the store. You go to the aisles, you see people, they've got questions. I think that's good, right? I think people want that. Right now I'm shopping at the Market Basket in Lowell. I'm a Market Basket guy. I'll start shopping at the Market Basket in Chelmsford. I think it's important that the superintendent is seen. I mean, I think accessibility is something. I'm the kind of guy that people feel very comfortable going up to have a difficult conversation and to have a good conversation with. I think you have to be approachable. You're the guy that you're going to want to see at the restaurant. When you go out to dinner, you're going to want to see the guy at the ball field. Just kind of getting the community pulse. I think the superintendent, regardless of who you select, has to be part of this community, and I think they have to be, again, visible. Visibility is a big thing. I think communication is a big thing. The community wants to know that the superintendent cares about the school system, cares about the community. That's something that I would certainly commit to. And again, regardless of your selection, you need that in a superintendent. You need the superintendent to have the best interests of Chelmsford at mind when you're working this job. The job is incredibly difficult. The job of educators these days is, it's grueling. You have to want to do this kind of work. And, I certainly do. And, whatever community I end up in, I want to be committed to that community. I think one of the things that really stalls momentum in educational progress is turnover in superintendencies. And, when you look at districts that are successful and districts that actually achieve over time, it's because of stability and leadership. I'm certainly looking to go to a school district where I can make a long-term commitment. I've said I want to go to a district that I'm going to be in for 5 or 10 years. Could it be longer? Certainly. But that really needs to be the minimum. Choppy administrations, I think, really just lend to choppy results. The two biggest things that really impact school systems is that changeover in leadership. And the other issue, ironically, is protracted labor negotiations. So if you get in a situation where you can't settle a contract, that stalls progress. I think those are two key things for you here. If you can get a superintendent to commit, and if selected, I would commit to being long-term in this district. I want to find a home where I can be in for quite some time, and I want to be part of that community.
Thank you, sir. Next question. How do you maintain, improve teacher quality so that all students have access to only the best teachers?
I think a key is in the hiring of staff. You have to go out, and again, similar to my comments with the administrators, but you have to hire, recruit, retain the best staff that you possibly can for your teachers. In Lowell, and I would look to bring this to Chelmsford, we have an incredible induction program. So we go out, we have partnerships with all the different grad schools for folks that are going to be graduating educators. And we want to hire those educators, and we will sometimes hire them without even having the job ready for them. Because we know over the course of the spring, you're going to have openings that are going to develop. And I can guarantee, math, science, special ed right now, I can guarantee you're going to have a job in the fall. I might not be able to tell you what school it's going to be at, but if you want to commit to Lowell, you want to commit to Chelmsford, we're going to hire you because I know how difficult it is to get a science teacher or a special ed teacher right down the line. So you have to go out and get those staff. When they come into the district, it's important that you induct them properly, that you're going to want to train them the way and set the expectations for your community. So we have a 3-year program that all of our teachers go through, depending on what level of licensure you come in at. But we actually develop homegrown graduate programs. We've partnered with Fitchburg Fitchburg State College on this, and we call the Lowell program. So it's a in-district master's program. You take a district curriculum, a district course. It costs the teacher nothing. because what they basically do is they forfeit their tuition reimbursement, because most districts, and I know Chelmsford does as well, they provide tuition reimbursement to staff. We would rather you take our program, and we would rather you have our instructors and learn, our skills and our pedagogy when you're doing your teaching, and have it be homegrown. So we've developed that so that you go through this program and you get a master's degree in education from Fitchburg State College. It costs you nothing, and we're investing in you, but we're also, developing this pipeline of educators that are now on the same page. They're on the same page with the same initiatives. They feel supported because the groups that they're actually taking classes with are the same people that they're going to see in their schools, and that helps us in the whole induction. I think the other thing that we do very well and is very important for a district is mentoring. So it's a district requirement that you have a mentoring program for staff. But what's really key is the mentor-mentee relationship. And it's a pairing. It's not just, Jay's new to the system and Sal's a veteran teacher. We're going to pair them up and you guys work together. Well, there's an actual structured, curriculum. There are structured meetings you go to. I want to match Jay up with, a high school business teacher necessarily. I don't want to have Jay be in a middle school, have his mentor be in a different building, because culture is different, expectations are different. So you really have to pay attention to the mentor-mentee matches, and I think all the literature will show you that if you do that and you take the time to do that, and you have that thoughtful induction program, you set high expectations, and everyone's on the same page about those expectations, that will produce a quality teaching staff. And it also produces a teaching staff that's committed to the district, wants to stay in the district, and over time, by far is going to be your best staff.
Sounds like that builds loyalty. Would you agree with the teacher?
It does. It builds buy-in, and it builds a sense of community and a sense of pride in your staff, in your district.
So what you're saying is you've helped institute programs where high school kids can receive credits towards college, state schools.
The dual enrollment program.
The dual enrollment. You've also helped institute programs in Lowell where teachers can get their masters for free.
Correct.
I want to ask you another question. What strategies would you use fostering? Because one of the biggest things we have in this community, and you heard that word transparency, but transparency is a big word. It's just not a finite situation that it applies to. I believe transparency also takes place with the school department, with the other levels, with FinCom, with the town manager, with the planning, the Board of Selectmen. What would some of the strategies would you use to foster a positive relationship, Jay? Because right now, we don't have a positive relationship, sir, and I'm not afraid to tell you that because that's one of the reasons I put myself out there. With the school committee, the town and local government regarding the educational policies and the budget priorities.
That's your challenge, right? That's your challenge. I think it's critical that whoever assumes this role can have the respect of the community, has the integrity to be able to stand up for what is just and right, can build the relationships and mend some fences if fences need to be mended. I think it's important that whatever personality the person has, that it's a personality that people are going to want to work with, that people feel are approachable. I don't think you can afford to put in an altering dynamic at this point in time. It takes time to build these relationships. I think if the structures aren't in place, you need to build them. So again, key for our success has been openness. And we talked a little bit about this, but I have very high expectations for myself, and I hold my staff to those same high expectations. When we're communicating with other folks, it's open and honest. I think you have to show, Chelmsford is a very good school system. It's a very good school system. I think its perception is the issue right now because you've taken steps over the last 6 months to shore up some of the issues. But I think it's that perception issue that we have to get through. And I think, by making a bold change and a bold statement in this hiring, you can begin that process. Again, I think it's the relationship piece. I need to be able to call, the town manager if I'm having an issue. I don't like surprises, and I tell my staff this. I would rather have bad news up front. I will never surprise you. Do not surprise me. I think that's kind of key in your open and honest conversations. If I'm having a problem, I call Kevin Murphy right now, and I let him know as city manager, here's a problem I'm having. Connor Baldwin's the CFO. I'm talking to him a couple of times a day if we're having issues. I never want him to have to call me and say, hey, what's going on here with this, transfer? What's happening with this? It's that open and honest communication. I know if they ever need me for something or if they need me to look at something, they call me as well. We were going through recently, Powers and Sullivan is our external auditor. I know you use Powers and Sullivan as well. And their contract was up. What I thought was nice was the new auditor, who is an external auditor, and her staff invited me to be part of the interview process. So, I think that's a huge step. That doesn't always happen in districts where the city and the school department are on the same page financially. But I was invited into those interviews. I did the interviews with the vendors, did the scoring of the proposals, and we actually made a joint recommendation on who the external auditor should be. We ended up recommending it remain Powers and Sullivan. Dick Sullivan is the person that's our contact. I believe he's yours as well. It's key to have that relationship as well. In some places, the town would have just selected the auditor. The schools wouldn't have been involved, and then an auditor would have showed up at the door to do the end of the year report audit or the grant audit or whatnot, and it almost sets up that adversarial relationship right off the bat. I think it's critical that we'd have to look at the structures, but I think the finance team structure that we have, so that there's once a month or a couple times a month, I'm going to town hall to actually have meetings with the business administrator. And I have to tell you, even looking at this whole situation in Chelmsford, and even considering the possibility of coming to Chelmsford, I base that decision on kind of having this conversation on a couple of key hires you've made lately. Ms. Crester, your new business official, has a very good reputation in the state. I would feel very comfortable coming in, working with her, that she's going to have the finances going in the right direction. Steve Murray is your high school principal, is the other key one. Steve and I participated in some grad classes in undergrad, and I think the world of him. The fact that you've been able to bring him in, and your high school is the focal point of the district. It's always what you look at. That's solid, right off the bat. I look at the opportunity to kind of come in and be part of that team, to work with Town Hall and kind of build some of those, or rebuild some of those relationships as good work and work that can be done. And I think I have the experience, I have the people skills, and I don't come in with any agenda. I don't know most of the folks in these different roles, so it would be a fresh perspective. And I would hope that folks' previous experience with me in Lowell and the reputation that I've built would give some instant credibility to the district moving forward.
So if we could just let Barbara
Sure.
have one or two, and then we'll go
Yeah,
back
I
down
think
if
that's-
anybody wants to. 'Cause I think
One
she
or
thought
two.
she.
No, that's okay. I just thought we were going to be passing
Yeah.
the mic.
No, I know.
This works great.
I understand.
Yeah. We talked about getting together with focus groups, and Al made the point that we really just don't have time. I know a group of teachers, and I don't even know, I can't say these are the teachers. I know our teachers, and I know our teachers will make the time to meet with you before a vote.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be willing to meet with them if I could put a group together?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, and I've said this to each of you individually when we met, if you consider me for this position and this ends up just being a good opportunity for both of us, the worst thing I want is my entry to the district to be the focus of the work for the next year. I want to have the best start I possibly can in Chelmsford, and I don't want to be looking back. I want to start the school year off strong. I want to be talking about what we're going to implement for programs next year and the year beyond. And I don't want the distraction of, well, did we do the process? The transparency thing. Because I don't think anyone wants that, and that wasn't the intention.
And we discussed this morning.
We
and
did.
You said, you said, I don't want to be the lightning rod,
Right.
a divisive body in this search. And you even offered to withdraw your name, which I was kind of shocked. And that kind of spoke volumes that you were willing to start from scratch kind of in this process. I respect that. But I would, like perhaps over this weekend, I don't know what your plans are, but if I get a group together.
I think what's actually important, to be honest with you, and I mentioned to the chairperson earlier, I have no problem spending the day in the district tomorrow. I have no problem coming out here. I know Monday's a holiday. Coming out here Tuesday to meet with some folks. I'm more than happy to do that. so that there's some comfort level in the decisions, that you're going to be making. I don't want to be the issue. I want to help solve issues, and I want to move forward. So I'm happy to do that. I'd love an opportunity to, I haven't been through some of the schools in a few years. I'd love the opportunity to do that. I don't want to be disruptive. Because one of the things that I really do pride myself on is the importance of the school day and respecting teachers' time and classroom time and trying not to distract from that. So if we can put together, meetings, focus groups, whatnot, between now and Tuesday, more than happy to do that. And just kind of have some personal conversations with folks, more than happy to.
You discussed this morning your plan hitting the ground.
Right.
Your first few days. What vision do you have for your first 100 days in our town?
Sure. And I think the context that I mentioned that in is, foregoing this, kind of the traditional search, right? I mean, there's obviously advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is you don't, resources. It's not like a safe kind of treading water situation for a year as you look for someone. If the committee felt that someone of my background, were what you needed at this particular point in time, and it was just inevitable, whether it was me or it was someone with my background, that was eventually going to be a candidate of your liking, then why not act now? Why not lose a year's momentum and programming? Because really, if you do an interim for a year and then you select someone to start the second year, that's the whole kind of catch-up year for them. They're acclimating themselves to the district. So maybe you'll start to see some progress in the third year. If you went this route, really year one, you're starting to see that progress and you're not looking back. I think what's critical, again, because I don't want the community to feel like they didn't have a say in this. What would be critical is the first, 3 months would be me having to have the conversations that didn't previously happen with folks. I think it would be me meeting with town officials individually, really kind of doing a needs assessment, hearing from them the strengths and the areas of opportunity within the district of what they see. It'd be me kind of getting out into the schools, making myself available to meet with parents, PTOs, staffs, to get a little bit of a flavor for this. What I think would be a win is if this were going to happen and be successful, and you could actually announce before the end of the school year, this is our plan, this is what's going to happen, everyone can leave for the summer with some sense of stability, some sense of normalcy for when they come back in August, and then we hit the ground running. There has to be opportunities over the summer where, there are other community groups that take place. I mean, not only just school groups, but I'd want to hear from other neighborhood groups or other areas of the community with what they'd like to see in the schools. Because often, folks might have had kids in the schools years ago, and they're not 100% tied into the schools right now, but they may say, hey, I'd really love to see this particular program happening at a school. You would have to help me figure out where those different groups are, but I would basically be on a 3-month listening tour around the district to hear from people, talk to people about some of my experiences, where I think I can help out, and then I'd be coming back to this board and working over that probably first 3 to 6 months on putting together, this is what I'm hearing in the community. How does it jive with where you see the district going, and starting to put together that long-range strategic plan for the district. I talked about a need in Lowell, and still hope this gets seen through. We really as a district need to commit to that 5 to 10 year plan. That oftentimes, particularly in tough budget years, you get into this cycle of just trying to get through the year. So you're not looking long term, and I think ultimately that stifles creativity and stifles growth in a district. That we have to look long term. If you can't follow through on a project that you had identified, say for a year or two, you at least need to document that and figure out what corrective action you're going to make sure that happens the following year. It's got to be this moving plan. But I'd be working with you to put that together, and with all the results from the listening sessions that we'd be having. So that would be really my kind of entry into the district. The summer is a nice time, right? It's a low key time to do that. People just, have more time. They're a little freer. It's a good time to meet with municipal people. I think, again, we talked on relationships, and obviously the finances is a focus. But in Lowell, and I think is equally important in Chelmsford, the relationships with other city departments, the police department, the fire department, what kind of relationships you have with, the emergency management staff in the buildings, those are all meetings that we can have and kind of do a sharing of feelings and where we should be going. So I think that would be critical over the summer.
I know this has been a rapid-fire, introduction to Chelmsford, and it may be an unfair question, but I hope you've given it some thought. What would you say are your top 5 priorities for Chelmsford, for our schools?
Okay. Garnering from different conversations we've had. A couple quick ones. Dual enrollment, I heard, loud and clear that was something that you folks wanted to explore. And again, I'm very comfortable with that. For multiple conversations, the full-day kindergarten seems to be an issue that needs to happen. And I mentioned, too, it's an issue you just have to commit to. So you just have to pick the year you're going to do it. It's not possible to do it for September of 15, but you just need to say you're doing it for September of 16 and have the dialogue, put it in place, and move on. So I think the kindergarten would be another issue. I would want to do an assessment of my own and have some folks look at the area you spoke about earlier, special education. So, how are you servicing students in Chelmsford? Are families happy with the services? Do they feel it's too much, too little? Could they be delivered in a more efficient manner? I would want to look at that. So that'd probably be my third area because it has such huge budget implications. But it's good work. So that would be third. The fourth, and it probably wouldn't normally be an area of focus, but it's got to be on building those relationships, with the town hall. The town officials, your accountants, all that group. I'd want to know that that they felt good at the end of the first year about the school department and about the impact that I've had. And I think my fourth, kind of big point for the school system. Is this fifth?
You gave us 4 already.
Wow, I'm so excited I
Great.
can't even count.
For a numbers guy.
I can't believe you're up to 3. I was like, that's a tough question. Wow,
It's tough.
you're on 5 now.
Yeah.
All right. So for the fifth one, my personal focus would be kind of inducting myself, I guess, into Chelmsford and into the schools. Really getting to find out what's important. I know, again, I am familiar with Chelmsford. As a kid, and I joked with the chairman, I said, the one controversy with me coming to Chelmsford was that I'm a Russell Mill guy and not a Chelmsford swim and tennis guy. But as a I know. As a kid, probably from the age of 10 on, my family was a member of Russell Mill, and I spent my summers out there. So I'm very familiar with folks in town. I'd want to rekindle some of those relationships and build on them. That would have to be a focus of my work in the first year of really, inducting myself to Chelmsford, getting up to speed on things. I know the fine arts and music programs are a pride of this community, and that's something I would want to really kind of learn more about and find out more about. I know athletics are certainly another strong point. Just being part of the community, kind of getting to know Chelmsford and letting Chelmsford know me, and figuring out how we could both kind of leverage those relationships to help each other.
One thing you haven't brought up, during your time in Chelmsford, you were the coach of the girls' tennis team at the high school, right?
Near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
Early.
You said you played tennis at Merrimack College. Were you?
I played tennis. Yes, I played Lowell against Chelmsford in high school, and then it never turned out good for me. I'll tell you that. Then, I played at Merrimack for a year, and I've hurt my shoulder, and decided to coach. So I coached the girls' team at Chelmsford High School for 2 or 3 years, and then the boys' team for 3 or 4 years. Wow. And that kind of piggybacked into the teaching position. And I think that's kind of where I knew folks and how that all happened. But yeah, I'm very familiar with the community and working here.
Folks,
That's it. No.
I think 3 hours is a lot. If there's some area that you're really concerned about that we haven't touched upon, let's do it now, and then see if we can bring this to a close. Is there anything else that we want to get at?
I've got.
I know I have some.
I'll do one.
Please.
Okay.
But it'll be multi-part.
Oh.
Oh, jeez.
In 10 parts.
Talking about,
After 3 hours, you got to make those parts very
I
clear.
got a funny feeling he'd stay here another 3 hours.
Well, talking about assessment, it's one of the things that, so it's a bit of a hot topic right now. It's also one of the things that's changed a lot in the last 4 or 5 years, and looks like it'll continue to change going forward. How do you define success as a district? If the mission is to educate our kids, how do you define success in that? What kind of metrics are you looking at? And what do you see from your vantage point right now in where you think the state is going over the next couple of years with standardized testing and that sort of thing?
You waited till the end to ask that question. Here's what I would say. And this really just isn't my opinion. As a community, I think we would have to figure out how we want to assess ourselves. Certainly, I mean, you hear assessment and you think immediately MCAS or PARC or whatever kind of state system-wide assessment they're going to use. For me, really, growth is the is the metric that we look at. It's CPI scores are certainly important. I'm more concerned with individual student growth, and is that student receiving at least a year's or making at least a year's growth over the course of a year. I think there are other metrics that have to come into play, and I think that's what the DOE really kind of opens up, even when there's been the talk of the DDMs, the district determined measures. I personally take the tact that I would like to see what you're currently using for formative assessments. Again, I think it's going to be similar to us. I'm not one to go out and just start layering on things or adding other ones. If we can utilize existing assessments and get the information we need, I'd be much more comfortable with that. I think sometimes in education, we add on or we layer, but we never take away, and it just becomes exhausting and I believe sometimes counterproductive. As a community, though, we have to see what else we value. One way to measure success is participation in say a dual enrollment program, if we're able to do that. Participation in AP courses. Not only participating, but how do the kids score? Do the kids actually earn the credit after taking the AP course, or do they just take it and they said they took an AP course, but no one ever scores sufficiently enough to get the credit for it? Dropout rate is another one. A lot of times schools will kind of pride themselves with, and that's a measure. What are you doing to curb dropout and really keep kids engaged in schools? What kind of opportunities are you providing kids outside of school? As a measure, alternative programming. Our traditional programming isn't for everyone, and there needs to be other programs that are going to entice kids and keep them in school and keep them engaged. There are measures there. I think the big issue is, as a community, how do we want to evaluate ourselves? And people are obviously going to look immediately to the MCAS or those scores, and it is important. But I think the DOE really opens you up to be able to bring in your own assessments, and I think that is really going to come from what you value as a committee and as a community, what you want to see. So we'd have to have that discussion. I don't think it can just be me saying this is what it's going to be, but collectively, I think that would be our work. Important, because then that is going to build into our value document, our budget, which is going to help bring the district forward.
Thank you.
Only because you can clearly articulate it better than I'm sure anybody on this board, and I want to be respectful for the people on the board. But if you could take a minute and I'm going to mention a gentleman, and then I'm going to tell you his responses. But can you tell the people in this audience in the town of Chelmsford who Mike Gilbert is?
Mike Gilbert, he works for the
Mass Association
of School Committees. He's the search consultant that Lowell hired to do the process, and he conducts searches across the state.
So he represents the school systems in the state of Massachusetts. He supports school committees to find new school superintendents. Would that be accurate?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So just part of the due diligence, and I think it's important. I think everybody in the town knows that this board worked very hard on the due diligence. Once again, this was not a knee-jerk decision. This was not something that just came about. This was something that very quickly we put an extreme amount of effort. Why? Because that's what you guys hired us to do. You guys asked us, do the heavy lifting, and then let us know the decision. Some of the words that were mentioned tonight is, we trust you. We expect you. This is what you were hired to do. Now, to that extent, I'll tell you that I had the wonderful opportunity of speaking to the two present superintendents over in your school system, Claire Abrams and Jean Durkin. And all I can tell you is this. They couldn't give any more of a glowing response about you. As a matter of fact, one of them said, I feel compelled to tell you something bad so we won't lose him. but I have so much respect for him that I have to tell you, this is a wonderful opportunity, and everybody deserves the opportunity when it's presented. So I have to tell you, Mr. Chairman, on behalf of some due diligence that this entire board did, because I know Barbara made phone calls, I know Mike looked into this, I know certainly I
did
did.
from Arizona.
I'm sure she did. I'm sure she did. But all I can tell you is this. 2 glowing recommendations from 2 current assistant superintendents in Lowell. But if that isn't enough, I had the personal opportunity to speak with Michael. Michael is the premier person that for the entire state of Massachusetts finds superintendents for schools. I'm going to tell you what Mike said. Mike said if Chelmsford loses this gentleman, they made a big mistake. Michael said, and these are his words, not mine, that Dr. Lang is the premier candidate in the state of Massachusetts right now. He represents the 4th largest district in the entire state, and if Dr. Lang hits the market, I can promise you there will be no interview process. There won't be a lengthy process. He'll go right to the front of the line, much like Steve Murray did, by the way. I just want to point that out. Steve Murray didn't go through a lengthy interview process. When we first found out that he did not sign the contract, in 48 hours he was granted the principal and given that position. So we do have precedent. We do have precedent. That job might have been posted. We interviewed other people. We did not do that. Steve Murray did not put an application. I think that's very important because we recognized talent. We reacted quickly. And as a result of us reacting quickly, you have the premier high school principal in the entire Merrimack Valley. We actually stole him, respectfully speaking, from one of the most advantageous, one of the most lucrative, one of the most exciting towns in the valley, certainly you would have to say is Andover. And he's part of the staff that we're talking about today. But some of the things that Mike said, Dr. Lang has been vetted out completely through our board, through the Mass Association of School Committees. He is the premier, these are his words, not mine, sir. He's the premier candidate in Massachusetts today. Dr. Lang will not be available in 90 days. He will be somewhere, and he'll be, I want to be very careful, but I want to be honest. He'll be one of the most compensated people in the state of Massachusetts as a result of his background and his commitment to every part of Lowell. His words, not mine. If I was in a position, I would react quickly and I would hire Jay Lang. He would be my #1 choice for any school superintendent in the state of Massachusetts today. Those are his words, Mr. Chairman, not mine. So this gentleman that's in charge of finding, his sole job is to stabilize schools, find school committee superintendents, vet them out, do the job to make our job easier, to make our communities easier to understand, has recommended Dr. Lang immediately. So I just want to bring that to the attention. And most of all, you know, I think this. I think when sometimes the process is very important, and then other times you're given an opportunity, and you have to seize that opportunity. Because I know many times, speaking humbly from the business community, if I was to wait and vet a process out, or vet an idea, or if I was in a startup company or represented a startup company, and I waited to vet out every single opportunity, I would miss the bus. And this is one bus I don't think this community needs or deserves. We need to heal right now as a community. We need to put this behind us. It's evident of his qualifications, Mr. Chairman, and I just want to tell you, it's been a privilege to see you, and I hope Chelmsford is his pick, and I hope we can come together on this and find a resolution to this wonderful opportunity. This is an opportunity for Chelmsford.
Thank you for your comments. We're going to be closing. Are there any press questions?
I dare you, Alana.
Well, thank you very much. I want to thank Dr. Lang for putting in his 3 hours. That was today. The first meeting was 2 hours. Several other meetings were 3 hours. So that he wasn't just, the unsuccessful candidate in Lowell. Gee, I think we should get him. I wonder if he's any good, kind of thing. We've put a lot of time in this, but we will be adjourning momentarily, and we will pick up on Tuesday night after we've had some more opportunity. We are planning to go out in the community tomorrow, and you've already heard from the candidate that if he is successful, he will be spending a lot of time in the community. So we'll start right away. I think that shows something if he's willing to give up a long holiday weekend to work with us in and of itself. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a
Anyone?
motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second.
I was having such a good time.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you all for being here.
Let's not blow this opportunity.